Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We back.
It is Shae and Rendis, and we are back to read Windup Girl. We have been away for a week. We skipped a week. But now I need to remember where we left off. We're going to get back into reading The Windup Girl, which is a... what did you call it? Biopunk? Biopunk.
Biopunk.
Near future post-apocalyptic dystopian kind of mashup. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember where we left off now.
The one enforcer guy's wife was kidnapped.
That's right. The JD, his wife Shae was kidnapped by, we probably know who.
Mm-hmm.
Someone we've met already, I'm sure.
Definitely not an evil guy.
Definitely not an evil guy. He's definitely an evil guy. We met, Hawk Sang, who's that weasel guy. Refugee. And, Anderson, who is the calorie company man, and Emiko, who is the wind-up girl. But we'll get back into it. I should actually grab my reading glasses now that I'm thinking about it.
Probably help.
It would.
Hardy har.
And there. Okay. So we'll pick up where we left off and find out what is going to happen now that Shae has been kidnapped by and seemingly tortured. Clear my throat. That's better. How was Hawk Sang to know that the Guy side anchor pads would be shut down? How was he to know that all his bribes would be wasted by the Tiger of Bangkok? Hawk Sang grimaces at the memory of his meeting with Mr. Leg.
Never fails.
Never fails. Oh.
Is that important?
It's my mom.
Stand by.
Yes. Stand by, please.
Hey, if you're listening to this is a perfectly good time to segue into telling you that Shae is an artist, and she does a lot of art and is currently looking to take on commissions. So if you've enjoyed her reading, you should also check out her artwork. You can go to twitch.com/GemShae to see all of her artwork, her commission rates, and her Patreon, where it offers rates and discounts and other incentives if you enjoy her art. Please follow her, share her art so that other people can find it, and if you help support us and her, you might see more Shae Story Show in the future.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, positively. If you also enjoy Shae, stay tuned for tomorrow, where Shae will be running Dragon Heist for us here on Party Wipe Games. We'll be starting our session 0, our character creation and party formation and other fun ideas of getting started. And we hope to see you there. Support, love, and validation for everyone. Hell yeah. Thank you, Frost.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Frost. Hawk Sang grimaces at the memory of his meeting with Mr. Lake, of crouching before that pale monster as though he were some sort of god. Kowtowing o- obeisance while the creature shouted and swore and rained newspapers down on his head, all of them with J.D. Rajana Rojana Sukchai, Rosanna Sukchai, on their front pages. The Tiger of Bangkok, a curse in his own right, as bad as one of the Thai's demons. Kun, Hawk Singh tried to protest, but Mr. Lake cut him off. "You told me you had everything arranged," he shouted. "Give me one good reason why I shouldn't fire you." Hawk Singh huddled under the assault, forcing himself not to fight back. Tried to be reasonable. "Kun, everyone lost material. This is the doing of Carlyle and Sons. Mr. Carlyle is too close to Trade Minister Akarat. He is always goading the white shirts, always insulting them. Don't change the subject. The algae tanks should have cleared customs last week. You told me you paid the bribes, and now I find you were keeping money, and now I find out you were keeping money back. This wasn't Carlyle. This was you. Your fault. Kun, it was the Tiger of Bangkok. He is a natural disaster, an earthquake, a tsunami. You cannot blame me for not knowing. I'm tired of being lied to. You think because I'm Farang that I'm stupid? That I don't see how you work the books? How you manipulate and lie and sneak? I do not lie. I don't care about your explanations and excuses. Your words are shit. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think, what you feel, what you say. All I care about is results. Bring the line up to 40% reliability within the month. Or go back to the Yellow Card Towers. That's your choice. You have a month before I fire your ass and find another manager. Kun, do you understand? Hawk Sang stared bitterly at the floor, glad the creature couldn't see his expression. Of course, like Jian Chang, I understand. It will be as you say. Before he had even finished speaking, the foreign devil was stalking out of the office, leaving Hawk Sang behind. It was enough of an insult that Hawk Sang considered pouring acid on the great safe and simply stealing the factory plans. In his white-hot rage, he got as far as the supply cabinets before good sense reined him in. If harm befell the factory, or the safe were robbed, suspicion would fall on him first. And if he ever hopes to forge a life in this new country, he cannot have any more blackness attached to his name. The white shirts need few excuses to revoke a yellow card. To kick a beggar Chinese across the border and into the hands of fundamentalists. He must be patient. He must survive in this Guy-side factory for another day. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So, instead, Hawk Sang lashes the employees forward, approves repairs that bleed more money, uses even his own carefully embezzled stores of cash to grease the skids so that Mr. Lake's demands will not escalate, so that the Guy-side foreign devil will not destroy him. They run tests on the line, rip up old drive links, canvass the city for teak that can be repurposed into a spindle. He has Laughing Chan offering a bounty to every yellow card in the city for rumors of old expansion properties that may have crumbled and revealed structural items worth harvesting. Anything that will allow him to bring the line back to full production before the monsoons finally pour down and make river transport of a new teak spindle practicable. Hawk Sing grinds his teeth with frustration. Everything is so close to fruition, and yet now his survival depends on a line that never worked and on people who have never been successful. It's almost enough for Hawk Sing to attempt a little arm twisting of his own. to tell the Gaisai devil that he knows something of Mr. Lake's extracurricular life, thanks to the reports of Lao Gu. That he knows every place Mr. Lake has visited, of the trips to libraries and old family homes in Bangkok, of his fascination with seeds. And now, this strangest, most astonishing thing. The news that sent Lao Gu scurrying to Hog Sing as soon as it occurred. A Windup Girl. An illegal piece of genetic trash. A girl that Mr. Lake pursues as if he is drunk on the transgression. Lao Gu whispers that Mr. Lake brings the creature to his bed, does so repeatedly, pines for it. Astonishing. Disgusting. Useful. But a weapon to be used as a last resort. If Mr. Lake attempts to truly eject him from the factory, better to have Lao Gu watching and listening and gathering more information than revealed and fired. When Hawk Sing first arranged Lao Gu's employment, it was for just this sort of possibility. He must not waste this one bit of leverage just because he is angry. And so, instead, even as his face feels as if it has been thrown on the floor, Hawk Sing jumps like a monkey to make the foreign devil happy. Hawk Sing grimaces as he crosses the factory floor, following Kit to another point of complaint. Problems. Always more problems. All around them, the activity of repair echoes. Half the power train has been torn out of the floor and reset. 9 Buddhist monks chant steadily at the far side of the building, stretching the Thai's sacred thread as they call Saisen everywhere. And imploring the spirits that infest the place. Half of them, likely contraction fee, who are angered that the Thais are working for Farang at all, begging them to allow the factory to work correctly. Hawk Sing grimaces at the sight of monks and the expenses he is incurring. What's this new problem? Hawk Sing asks as they squeeze past the cutting presses and duck under the line. It's here, Kun. I'll show you, Kit says. The salty, warm stink of algae thickens, a humid reek that hangs heavy in the air. Kit points to the algae tanks, where they stand in damp ranks. 3 dozen open-surface breeding vats. Their waters are coated with rich green scum of algae breeding. A worker is dragging her net across the surface of the tanks, drawing off the scum. She smears it across a man-sized screen before hoisting it up on the hemp ropes to hang overhead with the hundreds of similar screens. It's the tanks, Kit says. They are contaminated. Yes, Hawk Sing eyes the tanks, hiding his distaste. What is the difficulty? With the healthiest vats, the scum is more than 6 inches thick, a pillowly, vibrant chlorophyll green. The voluptuous scent of seawater and life emanates from them. Water trickles down the sides of the translucent tanks, thin lines that damp the floor and leave salty white blooms as they evaporate. Streamers of still living algae trail down drain channels to rusty iron grates and disappear into darkness. Pig DNA and something else. Flax, Hawk Sing thinks. It was flax that Mr. Yates always believed had been the key to this algae, that made it produce such useful scum. But Hawk Sing always liked the pig proteins. Pigs are lucky. This algae should be, also. And yet it has caused nothing but trouble, despite its potential. Kit smiles nervously as he shows Hawk Sing how several of the tanks have lower levels of algae production, an off-color scum, and a fishy reek. something more akin to shrimp paste than the verdant, salty smells of the more active tanks. Banyat said they should not be used, that we should wait until the replacement supplies come. Hoksang laughs harshly and shakes his head. We won't have any replacements, not with the Tiger of Bangkok burning everything that comes off the anchor pads. You'll have to make do with what we have. But it's contaminated. There are potential vectors. The problem could spread into the other tanks. You're certain of that? Banyat said. Banya walked under a megadon, and if we don't have this line running soon, the Farang will be sending all of us out to starve. But you think another 50 ties wouldn't like your job? 1,000 yellow cards? Kit closes his mouth. Hoksang nods grimly. Make this line work. If the white shirts inspect us, they will see that the baths are impure. Kit runs his finger through a gray froth, coating the rim of one of the tanks. We shouldn't be seeing this. The algae should be much brighter. None of this bubbling. Hoksang studies the tank sourly. If we don't get the line running, we will starve. He's about to say more, but the girl, Mai, runs into the room. Good. A man has come looking for you. Hoksang gives her an impatient look. Is it someone with information on the new spindle? A teak log ripped from some temple bot, maybe? Mai's mouth opens and closes, stunned at his blasphemy, but Hoksang doesn't care. If this man doesn't have a winding spindle, I don't have time for him. He turns back to Kit. Can you drain and scrub the tanks, perhaps? Kit shrugs non-committally. It can be tried, Kun, but Banyat said if we don't have new nutrient cultures, we can't start completely fresh. We'll be forced to reuse the cultures that come from these same tanks. The problem will likely return. We can't sieve it? Filter somehow? The tanks and cultures cannot be fully cleaned. Eventually it will be a vector, and the rest of the tanks will be contaminated. Eventually. Is that all? Eventually. Hoksang scowls at him. I don't care about eventually. I care about this month. If this factory fails to produce, we won't have a chance to worry about this eventually you speak of. You'll be back in Thornbury, picking through chicken guts, and hoping you aren't hit with the flu, and I'll be back in Yellow Card Tower. Don't worry about tomorrow. Worry about whether Mr. Lake throws us all out on the streets. Use your imagination. Find a way to make this guy say algae breed. There are so many foreshadowing in this.
Mm-hmm. It's all gonna wrap up real neat in the end.
Not for the first time. He curses that he works with ties. They simply lack the spirit of entrepreneurship that a Chinese would throw into the work. Good. It's Mai, still lingering. She flinches at his glare. The man says that this is your last chance. My last chance. Show me this here. Hoksang storms toward the main floor, shoving aside the curtains of the fining rooms. Out in the main hall, where megadons lean against spindle cranks, burning money that they simply don't have, Hoksang stops short, wiping algae fines from his hands, feeling like a terrified fool. Dogfucker stands in the middle of the factory like Sibisosis.
Forgot that was a character.
Yes.
Paused for a second.
That is his name.
I was like, wait. I was like, oh, right.
Yeah. Dogfucker stands in the middle of the factory like Sibisosis in the middle of a spring festival, watching the whir and clatter of the QA line as it runs through the tests. Old Bones and Horseface Ma and Dogfucker. All of them standing so confidently. Dogfucker with his fag-on fringe and his missing nose and his thug cronies. Hard-edged, neck-lang who have no pity for yellow cards and no fear of police. It's only dumb luck that Mr. Lake is upstairs going over the books. Only dumb luck that little Mai came to him and not to the foreign devil. Mai scampers ahead, leading him toward his future. Hoxing motions for Dogfucker to join him out of sight of the observation windows above. But Dogfucker, maddeningly, sets his feet and continues to study the rumbling line and shamble of the megadons. Very impressive, he says. Is this where you make your fabulous king springs? Hoxing glares and motions for him to move out of the factory. We should not be having this conversation here. Dogfucker ignores him. His eyes are on the offices and the observation windows. He stares up at them intently. And this is where you do your work? Up there? Not for long if a certain Ferengi catches sight of you. Hoxing forces himself to make a polite smile. Please, it would be better if we went outside. Your presence arouses questions. For a long moment, Dogfucker doesn't move, still staring up at the offices. Hoxing has the unnerving feeling that the man sees through the walls, that he sees the huge iron safe sitting up there, holding its valuable secrets tight. Please, Hoxing mutters, the workers will speak enough about this as it is. Abruptly, the gangster turns away, nodding to his men to follow. Hoxing stifles a rush of relief as he hurries after them. Someone wants to see you, Dogfucker says, gesturing toward the outer gates. The Dung Lord. Now of all times. Hoxing glances up at the observation window. Mr. Lake will be angry if he leaves. Yes, of course. Hoxing motions back toward the office. I will just tidy my papers. Now, Dogfucker says. No one keeps him waiting. He motions for Hoxing to follow. Now or never. Hoxing hesitates, torn, then waves her Mai. She dashes up as Dogfucker leads them towards the gates. Hoxing leans low and whispers, Tell Kuhn Anderson I will not be returning, that I have an idea of where to locate a winding spindle. She nods sharply. Yes, tell him that. Winding spindle. Mai nods and starts to turn away, but Hoxing pulls her back, pulls her close. Remember to speak slowly and in simple words. I don't want the Ferengi to misunderstand and put me out on the street. If I go, so do you. Remember that. Mai grins. Might been right. I will make him very happy that you are working so hard. She dashes back into the factory. Dogfucker smiles over his shoulder. And I thought you were only king of the yellow cards. Here you have a pretty Thai girl doing your bidding, too. Not bad for a yellow card king. Hoxing makes a face. The king of yellow cards is not a title to aspire to. Nor the Lord of Dung, he says. Names hide much. He surveys the compound. I've never been in a Ferengi factory, he says. It's very impressive. A lot of money here. Hoxing forces a smile. The Ferengi are crazy with how much they spend. His neck prickles at the workers' eyes watching him. He wonders how many of them know of Dogfucker. For once, he is grateful that more yellow card Chinese don't work at the factory. They would recognize in an instant who he treats with. Hoxing forces down the irritation and fear as he feels at the exposure. Of course, Dogfucker would like to see him off balance. It's part of the bargaining process. You are Tan Hoxing, head of new Tri-Clipper. Do not let petty tactics unsettle you. This mantra of self-assurance lasts until they reach the outer gates. Hoxing stops short. Dogfucker laughs as he opens the door for Hoxing. What's the matter? You've never seen a car before. Hoksang stifles an urge to slap the man for his arrogance and stupidity. "You're a fool," he mutters. "Do you know how much this exposes me? How people will speak of an extravagance like this, parked in front of this factory?" He ducks inside. Dogfucker climbs in after him, still grinning. The rest of his men crowd in after. Old Bones calls forward to the driver. The machine's engine rumbles to life. They start to roll. "Is it coal or diesel?" Hoksang asks. He can't help whispering. Dogfucker grins. "The boss does so much for the carbon load." He shrugs. "This is a small extravagance." "But the cost," Hoksang trails off. "The exorbitant cost of turning this steel behemoth into acceleration. An extraordinary waste. A testament to the Dung Lord's monopolies. Even in the wealthiest days of Malaya, Hoksang would never have considered such an extravagance. Despite the heat of the car, he shivers. There's an ancient solidarity to the thing, so heavy and massive, it might as well be a tank. It's as if he's locked inside one of Spring Life's safes, isolated from the world beyond. Claustrophobia swallows him. Dogfucker smiles as Hoksang tries to master his emotions. "I hope you aren't wasting his time," he says. Hoksang makes himself meet Dogfucker's gaze. "I think you would like it better if I failed." "You're right," Dogfucker shrugs. "If it were up to me, I would have let your kind die on the other side of the border." The car accelerates, pressing Hoksang into the leather seat. Outside the windows, Krungthep slides past, utterly removed from him. Crowds of sun-drenched skin and dusty draft animals and bicycles like schools of fish. Eyes turn toward the car as it forges past. Mouths open wide and silent as people shout and point at his passage. The speed of the machine is appalling. 'Cause those things don't really exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow cards crowd around the tower entrances. Malayan and Chinese men and women trying to look hopeful as they wait for labor opportunities that have already faded in the heat of the afternoon. And yet, still, they try to look vital, try to show that their bony limbs have calories to spare, if only someone will allow them to burn. Everyone stares as the Dung Lord's car arrives. When the door opens, they kneel and wave, all of them performing crabs of abasement, triple bows to the patron who keeps them housed, the one man in Krungthep who willingly shoulders the burden of them, who provides a measure of safety from the red machetes of the Malays and the black batons of the white shirts. Hoksang's eyes slide over the yellow card backs, wondering if he knows any of them. Momentarily surprised that he is not among them, performing his own crab of obeisance. Dogfucker leads him into the tower darkness. The skitter of rats and the smell of close-packed, sweating bodies convex down from the floors above. At a pair of gaping elevator shafts, he flips open a tarnished brass. Opens a tarnished brass speaking tube and shouts with brisk authority. They wait, eyes on one another. Dogfucker bored, Hoksang carefully hiding anxiety. A rattling comes from above, gears clicking, and the scrape of iron on stone. A lift sinks into view. Dogfucker drags open the gate and steps in. The woman at the elevator controls disengages the brake and shouts into the speaking tube before yanking the gate closed again. Dogfucker smiles through the gate. "Wait here, yellow card." And then he is whisked up into the darkness. A minute later, ballast men slide into view in the secondary shaft. They squeeze out a lift and dash for the stairwell in a herd, One of them catches sight of Hoksang, mistakes his look. There aren't any more places. He has enough of us already. Hoksang shakes his head. No, of course not. He mutters, but the men are already disappearing back up the stairs, sandals slapping as they scramble for the sky to make the ballast drop again. From where he stands, inside the building, the glare of the tropics is a distant rectangle, clouded with refugees, all watching the street with nothing to do and nowhere to go. A few yellow cards shuffle the halls. Babies cry, their small voices echoing against hot concrete. From somewhere above, the grunt of sex comes. People screwing in the halls like animals, out in the open because they have given up on privacy. It is all so familiar. Extraordinary that he once lived in this same building, sweltered in this same pen. Minutes tick by. Perhaps Dunglord has changed his mind. Dogfucker should have returned by now. Movement catches the corner of Hoksang's eye, and he flinches, but there is nothing but shadow. Sometimes he dreams that the green headbands have become Cheshires, that they can molt and appear where he least expects them. While he pours water over his head, and as he makes his bath, or as he eats a bowl of rice, or squats over a latrine, they simply shimmer into existence and grab him and gut him and stack his head on the streets as a warning. Just like Jade Blossom and First Wife's elder sister. Doesn't even have a name for First Wife's elder sister.
Nope. She's dead. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. It just highlights how people aren't people to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Just like his sons. The lift rattles. A moment later, Dogfucker descends. The elevator woman is gone. Dogfucker's own hand runs the brake system. Good, you didn't run away. I am not afraid of this place. Dogfucker gives him an appraising look. No, of course not. You came from it, didn't you? He steps out and motions toward the tower dimness. Guards materialize where Hoksang thought only shadows existed. He forces himself not to yell, but Dogfucker still catches his twitch. Smiles at it. Search him. Hands pat Hoksang's ribs, run down his legs, prod at his genitals. When the guards are finished, Dogfucker gestures Hoksang into the lift. He guesses the heft of them and shouts up the speaking tube. From high above, the rattle of men climbing into the ballast cage filters down, and then they are rising, climbing up through the layers of hell. The heat thickens. Deep in the heart of the building, exposed as it is to the full force of the tropic sun, it is an oven. Hoksang remembers sleeping in the stairwells here, struggling to breathe as the bodies of his fellow refugees stank and rolled around him. Remembers how his belly pressed against his spine, and then, all in a rush, he remembers blood on his hands, hot and alive. A fellow yellow card reaching out to him, begging for aid, even as he drove the knife edge of his whiskey bottle into the man's throat. Hoksang closes his eyes, forcing away memory. You were starving. There is no other way. Oh, that's something new we learn. But he has a hard time convincing himself. They continue to rise. A breeze caresses him. The air cools, scents of hibiscus and citrus. An open hall flashes by, a promenade, exposed to the city air, careful gardens, lime trees bordering the edges of wide balconies. Hoksang wonders at the amount of water men must carry to this height. wonders at the calories that must be spent in the man who has access to such power. It's both thrilling and terrifying. He is close. So very close. They reach the top of the building. The sun-drenched expanse of the city spreads before them. The gold spires of the grand palace where the child queen holds her court and the Somdet Chowprea pulls the strings. The Shedi of Mongkut's temple on its hill, the only thing that will survive if the levees fail. The broken and tumbling spires of the old expansion, and all around, the sea. It's a good view. It's a good view, isn't it, Yellowcard? Across the wide roof, a white pavilion has been erected. It rustles gently in the salt breeze. Under its shade, in a rattan chair, the Dung Lord sprawls. The man is fat. Fatter than anyone Hawksang has seen since Pearl Co. in Malaya. Cornered in the market on blister rust, resistant durian. Perhaps not as fat as Al Deng, who ran a sweet stand in Penang, but still the man is astonishingly fat, given the privations of the calorie economy. Hawksang approaches slowly, lowering his head until his chin touches his chest, and his pressed palms are nearly above his head with the respect he shows the man. The fat man regards Hawksang. "You wish to speak with me?" Hawksang's throat catches. He nods. The man waits, patient. A servant brings cold and sweet coffee and offers it to the Dung Lord. He takes a sip. "Are you thirsty?" he asks. Hawksang has the presence of mind to shake his head, and Dung Lord shrugs, sips again, says nothing. 4 servants in white suits shuffle over, carrying a linen-draped table. They set the table before him. The Dung Lord nods to Hawksang. "Come now. Don't worry about being polite. Eat. Drink." A chair is produced for him. The Dung Lord offers Hawksang wide fried Utex noodles, a crab, and green papaya salad, along with labamu, gangai, and steamed Utex. Along with all of it, he offers a plate of sliced papaya. "Don't be afraid. The chicken is latest gene rip, and papaya are just picked from my eastern plantation. Not a trace of blisterus in the last 2 seasons. How we burn any trees that show the disease, and those around them as well. Also, we have widened our buffer perimeter to 5 kilometers, with UV sterilization. It seems to be enough." "Ah." The Dung Lord nods at the small king spring sitting on the table. "A gigajoule?" Hawksang nods. "And you have them to sell?" Hawksang shakes his head. "The way of making them." "What makes you think I am a buyer?" Hawksang shrugs, forcing himself to hide his nervousness. There was a time when this sort of bargaining was easy for him, second nature, but he wasn't desperate then. "If you are not, then there are others." The Dung Lord nods, finishes his coffee. The servant pours more. "And why do you come to me?" "Because you are rich." The Dung Lord laughs at that, nearly spits out his coffee. His belly rolls and his body shakes. The servants freeze, watchful. When the Dung Lord finally controls his laughter, he wipes his mouth and shakes his head. "A fair answer, that." His smile disappears. "But I'm also dangerous." Hawksang buries his nervousness and speaks directly. "When the rest of the kingdom would have rejected our kind, you took us in. Not even our own people. The Thai Chinese were so generous." Her Royal Majesty the Queen showed mercy, allowing us to come across the border, but it was you who provided safe haven. The Dung Lord shrugs. No one uses these towers anyway. And yet you are the only one who showed compassion. An entire country full of good Buddhist people, and only you gave shelter, instead of forcing us back across the border. I would be dead by now if not for you. The Dung Lord studies Hawksang a moment longer. My advisors thought it was foolish, that it would put me in opposition with the white shirts, set me at odds with General Prakra, maybe even threaten my methane deals. Hawksang nods. Only you had enough influence to risk it. And what do you want for this wondrous bit of technology? Hawksang readies himself. A ship. The Dung Lord looks up, surprised. Not money, not jade, or not opium? Hawksang shakes his head. A ship, a fast clipper, Mishimoto designed. Registered and approved to transport cargo to the kingdom and throughout the South China Sea, under the protection of Her Majesty the Queen. He waits a beat, and your patronage. Ah, clever yellow card. The Dung Lord smiles. And I thought you were truly grateful. Hawksang shrugs. You are the only person who has the influence to provide such permits and guarantees. The only one who can make a yellow card truly legitimate, you mean? The only one who could convince white shirts to allow a yellow card shipping king to develop. Hawksang doesn't blink. Your union lights the city, your influence unparalleled. Unexpectedly, the Dung Lord forces himself out of his seat, stands. Yes, well, so it is. He turns and shambles across the patio to the edge of his terrace, hands behind his back, surveying the city below. Yes, I suppose I still have strings I can pull, ministers I can influence. He turns back. You are asking for a lot. I give you even more. And if you're selling this to more than one? Hawksang shakes his head. I do not need a fleet. I need one ship. Tan Hawksang, seeking to restore his shipping empire here in the Tai Kingdom. The Dung Lord turns abruptly. Maybe you've already sold it to others. I can only swear that it is not so. Would you swear on your ancestors? On your family's ghosts all walking hungry in Malaya? Hawksang shifts uneasily. I would. I want to see this technology you claim. Hawksang looks up, surprised. You haven't already started to wind it. Why don't you demonstrate now? Hawksang grins. You're afraid it is a booby trap of some sort? A blade bomb, maybe? He laughs. I do not play games. I come for business only. He looks around. You have a winding man? Let us both see how many jewels he can put into it. Wind it and see. But do be careful with it. It is not as resilient as a standard string because of the torque it operates under. It cannot be dropped. He points at a servant. You there. Put this spring on your winding spindle. See how many jewels you can shove into it. The servant looks uncertain. The Dung Lord nods agreement. A sea breeze rustles across the high garden as a young man sets the kink spring on its spindle and settles on the winding cycle. Hawksang is suddenly seized by a new worry. He confirmed with Banyat that he was taking one of the good springs, that it had passed QA, unlike the ones that always failed and cracked as soon as they started their winding. Banyat assured him that he should take one from a certain stack, but now, as the servant prepares to lean on his pedals, doubt flares. If he chose wrong, if Banyat was wrong, and now Banyat is dead under the feet of a crazed megadont, Hawk Sing couldn't confirm one last time. He was sure, and yet the servant leans against the pedals. Hawk Sing holds his breath. Sweat appears on the servant's brow as he looks over at Hawk Sing and the Dung Lord, surprised at the resistance. He changes gears. The pedals turn. Slowly at first, then faster. He begins cycling up through the gears as his momentum increases, jamming more and more energy into the kink spring. The Dung Lord watches thoughtfully. I knew a man who worked at your kink spring company a few years ago. He didn't spread his wealth around as you do. Didn't curry favor with so many of his fellow yellow cards. He pauses. I understand that the white shirts killed him for his watch, beat him bloody, robbed him blind, right in the street, because he was out after curfew. Hawk Sing shrugs, forcing down memories of a man lying on the cobbles, a ruined mess, broken already, begging for help. The Dung Lord's eyes are thoughtful. And now you work for this company as well. It seems like an unlikely coincidence. Hawk Sing doesn't say anything. The Dung Lord says, Dogfucker should have paid more attention. You're a dangerous one. Hawk Sing shakes his head emphatically. I only wish to re-establish myself. The servant continues to pedal, cranking more jewels into the spring, forcing more energy into the tiny box. The Dung Lord watches, trying to hide his astonishment as the process continues, but still his eyes have widened. Already the servant has pushed more energy into the box than any spring its size should accept. The cycle winds as the servant pedals. Hawk Sing says, It would take all night for a man like this to wind it. You should take it to a megadont. How does it work? Hawk Sing shrugs. There is a new lubricating solution. It allows the springs to be tightened to significantly higher tensions without breaking or locking. The man continues to pour power into the spring. Servants and bodyguards begin to gather around, all of them watching with a certain awe as he cranks away at the box. Astonishing, the Dung Lord mutters. If you chain it to a more efficient animal, a megadont or a muley, the calorie to joule transfer is nearly lossless, Hawk Sing says. The Dung Lord watches the spring as the man continues to wind. He is smiling. We'll test your spring, Hawk Sing. If it performs as well as it winds, you'll have your ship. Bring the specifications and blueprints. Your kind I can do business with. He motions to a servant and orders liquor. A toast to a new business partner. Relief floods through Hawk Sing. For the first time since blood washed his hands in an alley long ago, since a man begged for mercy and found none. Liquor flows in Hawk Sing's veins, and he is content. Dangerous people.
Dangerous people.
Need a little more water.
Oh, you just meant to drink.
Yeah. All right. Chapter 13. JD remembers when he first met Shae. He had just finished one of his early Muay Thai bouts. He can't even remember who he competed against, but he remembers coming out of the ring, people congratulating him, everyone saying that he moved better than Nai Kanam Tom. He drank Lao Lao that night, and then stumbled out into the streets with his friends, all of them laughing, trying to kick a takraw ball, drunk, absurd, all of them flushed with victory and with life. And there Shae was, closing her parents' shop, propping up wooden panels that secured the storefront where they sold marigolds and newly re-engineered jasmine flowers for temple offerings. When he smiled at her, she gave him and his drunk friends a look of disgust, but JD felt a shock of recognition, as if they had known one another in a past life and were at last meeting again, fated lovers. He had stared at her, stunned, and his friends had caught the look. Sutapong and Jaiporn and all the rest, all of them, lost when the violet comb epidemic hit, and they went into the breach to burn the villages where it had struck. All of them gone, but he remembers them all catching him staring, suddenly stupid with infatuation, and how they teased him. Shae looked at him with a studied contempt and sent him stumbling away. For JD, it had always been easy to attract a girlfriend. Some girl either pleased by his Muay Thai or his white uniform, but Shae simply looked through him and turned her back. It took him a month to get up the nerve to return. The first time he dressed well, shopped for temple offerings, took his change, slipped out silently. Over the course of weeks he dropped by, talking with her more, establishing a connection. At first he thought that she knew him for the drunken fool trying to make amends, but over time it became apparent that she had not made the connection, that the arrogant drunk on the streets that night had been completely forgotten. JD never told her how they first met, not even after they were married. It was too humiliating to admit to what she had seen in him that night on the street. To tell her that the man she loved was that other fool as well. And now he prepares to do something worse. He puts on his white dress uniform while Niwat and Surat watch. They are solemn as he prepares to bring himself low in their eyes. He kneels before them. Whatever you see today, do not let it shame you. They nod solemnly, but he knows they do not understand. They are too young to understand pressures and necessity. He pulls them close, and then he goes out into the blinding sunlight. Kanya awaits him in a cycle rickshaw, compassion in her eyes, even if she is too polite to speak what is in her heart. They ride silently through the streets. The ministry appears ahead, and they ride through the gates. Servants and rickshawmen and carriages clog the outer gates, waiting for their patrons to return. Witnesses have already been arriving then. Their own rickshaw makes its way to the temple. Wat Phra Sahib was erected inside the ministry in honor of the biodiversity martyr. It is the place where white shirts make their vows and are formally ordained as protectors of the kingdom before they are given their first drinks. It is here that they receive their ordination, and it is here JD starts and nearly jumps to his feet in anger. Farang are milling all around the temple steps, foreigners inside the ministry compound, traders and factory owners, and Japanese, sunburned, sweating, stinking creatures invading the ministry's most sacred place. Jayen, Yen, Kanya mutters. It's Akarat's doing, part of the bargain. JD can't hide his disgust. Worse yet, Akarat is standing beside Somdat Shauprea, saying something to him, telling a joke perhaps. The two of them have become too close by far. JD looks away and sees General Prakta watching him from the top of the temple steps, his face expressionless. Around him, the brothers and sisters that JD had worked with and warred with are all streaming into the temple. Biram Bhakti is there, smiling widely, pleased to have his revenge for his lost revenue. People catch sight of JD's arrival. A hush overtakes the crowd. Shaegem, yen, Kanya murmurs again, and then they are climbing down, and he is being escorted inside. Golden statues of Buddha and Phra Seub gaze down on the assembling people, serene. The screens on the temple walls portray scenes of the fall of old Thailand, the Farang releasing their plagues on the earth, animals and plants collapsing as their food webs unraveled. His Royal Majesty King Rama XII, mustering his final, pitiful human forces, flanked by Hanuman and his monkey warriors. Images of Krut and Kiramukha, and an army of half-human Kala fighting back the rising seas and plagues. JD's eyes sweep over the panels, remembering how proud he had been in his own ordination. No cameras are allowed anywhere inside the ministry, but the whisper sheet scribblers are there with their pencils. JD removes his shoes and enters, followed by the jackals who slaver after his rendering down of their greatest enemy. The Somdat Shauprea kneels beside Akarat. JD eyes the designated protector of the queen, wondering how someone as divine as the last king could have been fooled into making the Somdat Shauprea the protector of Her Royal Majesty the Child Queen. The man has so little that is good. JD shivers at the thought of the queen so close to someone so well known for his darkness. JD sucks in his breath. The man from the anchor pads is kneeling beside Akarat. A long rat face, watchful and arrogant. Cool heart, Kanya mutters again as she leads him forward. It's for Shae. JD forces down his rage, the shock of seeing the man. He leans close to Kanya. That's the one who took her. The one in the airfields, right there, beside Akara. Kanya scans the faces. Even if it is true, we must do this. It's the only way. Do you truly believe that? Kanya has the grace to duck her head. I'm sorry, JD. I wish... Don't worry, Kanya. He nods toward the man and Akarat. Just remember these two. Remember that they will stop at nothing for power. He looks at her. Will you remember that? I will. You swear on Phra Seub? She has the grace to look embarrassed, but she nods. If I could perform the triple bow before you, I would. He thinks he sees tears in her eyes as she backs away. The crowd hushes as the Somdat Shauprea stands and steps forward to witness the proceedings. 4 monks begin to chant. On happier occasions, they would be 7 or 9 in number, and consecrating a wedding or blessing the layout of a new building's cornerstone. Instead, they are here to oversee a humiliation. Minister Akarat and General Prata go to stand before the assembled people. Incense fills the room along with the monks chanting. A drone in Pali as they remind everyone that all is transient, that even Fra Seub in his despair recognized transience, even as his compassion for the natural world overwhelmed him. The chanting of the monks dies. The Samdet Shalpreya motions for both Akarat and Prakcha to come before him, to crab and make obeisance. Obeisance. Is it obeisance or obeisance?
Sounds like obeisance.
Obeisance. The Samdet Shalpreya watches without emotion as the two ancient enemies pay their respects to the only thing that binds them together, their respect for royalty and the palace. The Samdet Shalpreya is a tall man, well-fed, and he towers over them. His face is hard. Rumors circle around him about his tastes, about his darkness. But still, he is the one designated to protect Her Majesty the Child Queen until her ascension. He is not royalty, could never be so, and it terrifies J.E. that she lives within his circle of influence. If it weren't for the fact that the man's own fate is tied so tightly to hers, he would probably... J.D. stifles the nearly blasphemous thought as Prasha and Akarat approach. J.D. kneels. Around him, whisper sheet pencils scratch frantically as he performs a crab before Akarat. Akarat smiles with satisfaction, and J.D. stifles the urge to lunge at the man. I will pay you back in my own time. He stands carefully. Akarat leans close. Well done, Captain. I almost believe you are really sorry. J.D. keeps his features impassive, turns to address the people, the scribblers. His heart closes as he sees that his sons are present, brought to witness the humiliation of their father. I have overstepped my authority. His eyes go to General Pracha, watching coldly from the edge of the dais. I have dishonored my patron, General Pracha, and I have dishonored the Environment Ministry. All of my life, the ministry has been my home. I am ashamed that I have selfishly used its powers for my own benefit, that I have misled my fellow officers and my patrons, that I have been bankrupt morally. He hesitates. Niwat and Shurat are watching, held by their grandmother, Shae's mother, all of them watching as he humiliates himself. I beg forgiveness. I beg an opportunity to rectify my wrongs. General Pracha strides toward him. J.D. drops again to his knees and makes a crab of submission for him. General Pracha ignores him, walks past his bowing face, his feet within inches of J.D.'s head, speaks to the assembly. An independent investigation tribunal has determined that Captain J.D. is guilty of accepting bribes, of corruption, and the abuse of his powers. He glances down at J.D. It has further been determined that he is no longer fit for service in the ministry. He will become a monk and perform penance for 9 years. His possessions will be disposed of. His sons will be adopted into the care of the ministry, but their family name will be erased. He looks down at J.D. If the Buddha is merciful, you will eventually come to understand that your pride and avarice has brought this upon you. We hope that if you do not attain understanding in this life, that your next one will provide you with hope of improvement. He turns away, leaving J.D. still in his bow. Akarat speaks. We accept the apologies of the Environment Ministry and the failures of General Proctor. We look forward to an improved working relationship in the future, now that this snake has had its fangs pulled. The Samdat Shalpreya motions to the true great powers of the government, as they should show one another respect. JD remains crouched. A sigh runs through the crowd, and then people are streaming out to tell of what they have seen. Only once the Samdat Shalpreya is gone is JD invited to stand by the pair of monks. Their aspect is serious, their heads shaven, their saffron robes aged and faded. They indicate to him where they will take him next. He is theirs now. 9 years of penance for doing the right thing. Akarat steps before him. Well, Kun JD, it seems that you have at last discovered your limits. It's a pity you didn't listen to warnings. All of this was so unnecessary. JD forces himself to weigh. You have what you wanted, he mutters. Now let Shae grow. So sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. JD searches the man's eyes, hunting for the lie, but he can't tell. Are you my enemy, or is it another? Is she dead already? Is she still alive, trapped in one of your friend's prison cells? An unnamed prisoner, alive or dead? He forces down his worries. Bring her back, or I'll hunt you down and kill you like a mongoose killing a cobra. Akarat doesn't flinch. Careful with the threats, JD. I'd hate to see you lose anything else. His eyes strayed towards Niwat and Surat. A chill runs through JD. Stay away from my children. Your children? Akarat laughs. You have no children now. You have nothing at all. You are lucky General Pracha is your friend. If I were him, I would have turned those 2 boys of yours out into the street to beg for blister scraps. That would have been a true lesson. And that was chapter 13.
Chapter 13 done.
Yeah.
Poor guy, he doesn't deserve all that.
Nope, but that's what he gets for being a good cop.
I was like, also an arrogant cop.
Yeah, an arrogant one, but he didn't take bribes or anything.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's for true.
Yeah. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Wow.
But he did his job, and corrupt city people don't want him doing his job.
Yep. Because corrupt people gotta make their money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crushing the Tiger of Bangkok should have been more satisfying, but frankly, without a cue card of the various names involved, the ceremony looks like any number of impenetrable Thai religious and social events. In fact, the man's actual demotion is surprisingly quick. Within 20 minutes of being ushered into the Environment Ministry's temples, Anderson finds himself watching silently as the vaunted J.D. Rojana Sukchai makes crabs of humility to Trade Minister Akarat. The golden statues of the Buddha in Seub Nakasethian gleam dully, overseeing the solemn moment. None of the participants show any expression at all, not even a smile of triumph from Akarat. And then, a few minutes later, the chanting monks end their droning and everyone is standing to leave. That's it. And so now, Anderson finds himself cooling his heels outside the Phra Seub temple lot, waiting to be escorted out of the compound after enduring the astonishing series of security checks and body searches to get into the Environment Ministry campus, he had begun to fantasize that he might glean some useful bit of intelligence about the place, perhaps get some better sense of where their lovely sea bank might be tucked away. It was foolish, and he knew it. But after the fourth pat-down, he was almost convinced that he was about to run into Gibbons himself, perhaps cradling a newly engineered gnaw like a proud father. Instead, he encountered grim cordons of white shirts and was whisked by cycle rickshaw directly into the temple steps, where he was required to remove his shoes, stand in bare feet under tight supervision before being led inside with all the other witnesses. Around the temple, a thicket of rain trees prevents much view of the place at all. Agrigent arranged accidental dirigible overflights have given him more information about the compound than he's got right to know, standing dead in the heart of the thing. I see you got your shoes back. Carlyle, sauntering over, grinning. The way they inspected, Anderson says, I thought they were going to lock them in quarantine. They just don't look like your Ferengi smell. Carlyle pulls out a cigarette and offers Anderson one as well. Under the close gaze of their white shirt guards, they light up. Enjoy the ceremony? Carlyle asks. I thought there might be more pomp and circumstance. They don't need it. Everyone knows what this means. General Proctor has lost his face. Carlyle shakes his head. For a second, I was sure we're going to look up and see their Fra Su statue crack in half with the shame. You can feel the kingdom changing. It's in the air. Anderson thinks of the few buildings he glimpsed as he was escorted to the temple. They were all dilapidated, water-stained and covered with vines. If the Tiger's Fall isn't proof enough, the fallen trees and unkempt grounds are fine indicators. You must be very proud of what you've accomplished. Carlyle drawls on his cigarette and exhales slowly. Let's just say it's a satisfying step. You've impressed them. Anderson nods toward the Ferengi phalanx, who seem to be already drunk on their reparation money. Lucy is trying to convince Otto to sing the Pacific anthem under the stern gazes of the armed white shirts. The traitor catches sight of Carlyle and lurches over. His breath stinks with Lau. Are you drunk? Carlyle asks. Completely. Otto smiles dreamily. I had to finish everything at the gate. Bastards wouldn't let me bring the celebration bottles inside. Took Lucy's opium, too. He drapes an arm over Carlyle's shoulders. You're right, you bastard. Right as rain. Look at those damn white shirts' expressions. They've been eating bittermelon all day. He gropes for Carlyle's hands, tries to shake it. God damn, it's good to see them taken down much. Them and their thieving gifts of goodwill. You're a good man, Carlyle. Good man. His grins blearily. I'm going to be rich because of you. Rich. He laughs and paws for Carlyle's hand again. Good man, he says as he gets a grip. Good man. Lucy shouts for him to get back in line. Rickshaw's here, you drunk bastard. Otto stumbles away with Lucy's help, and with Lucy's help tries to crawl into the rickshaw. The white shirts watch coldly. A woman in an officer's uniform studies them all from the top of the temple steps, her face expressionless. Anderson watches her. What do you think she's thinking? He asks. Nodding up to the woman officer. All these drunk harangue crawling through her compound. What does she see? Carlyle draws on his cigarette and lets out smoke in a slow stream. The dawn of a new era. Back to the Future, Anderson murmurs. Sorry. Nothing, Anderson shakes his head. Something Yeats used to say. We're in a sweet spot now. The world's shrinking. Lucy and Otto finally manage to climb into the rickshaw. They roll out with Otto shouting blessings on all the honorable white shirts who have made him so rich with their reparation money. Carlyle quirks an eyebrow at Anderson, the question unspoken. Anderson draws on his cigarette, considering the branches of possibility that underlie Carlyle's question. I want to talk to Akarat directly. Carlyle snorts. Children want all sorts of things. Children don't play this game. You think you can twist him around your finger, turn him into a good little administrator, like in India? Anderson favors him with a cold eye. More like Burma. He smiles at Carlyle's stricken expression. Don't worry. We're not in the nation-breaking business anymore. All we're interested in is a free market, and I'm sure we can work toward that common goal, at least. But I want the meat. So cautious. Carlyle drops his cigarette on the ground, grinds it out with his foot. I would have thought you'd have more adventurous spirit. Anderson laughs. I'm not here for the adventure. That's all for those drunks over there. He trails off, stunned. Emiko is in the crowd, standing with the Japanese delegation. He catches a glimpse of her movement in the knot of business people and political officers as they cluster around Akarat, talking and smiling. My God, Carlyle sucks in a breath. Is that a wind-up in the compound? Anderson tries to say something, but can't make his throat work. No. He's wrong, it's not Emiko. The movement is the same, but the girl is not. This one is richly dressed, with gold glimmering around her throat. A slightly different face. She lifts her hand, stutter-stop motion, tucks back silk hair behind her ear. Similar, but not the same. Anderson's heart starts beating again. The wind-up smiles graciously at whatever story Akarat is telling. She turns to make introductions for a man Anderson recognizes from intelligence photos as a general manager of Mishimoto. Her patron says something to her, and she ducks her head to him, then hurries away to one of the rickshaws, odd and graceful. She's so much like Emiko, so stylized, so deliberate. Everything about the wind-up before him reminds him of that other. So much more desperate girl. He swallows, remembering Emiko in his bed, small and alone, starving for information about wind-up villages. What are they like? Who lives within them? Do they really live without patrons? So desperate for hope, so different from this glittering wind-up that threads gracefully between white shirts and officials. I don't think she was allowed in the temple, Anderson finally says. They couldn't have gone that far. The white shirts must have made her wait outside. Still, they must be seething. Carlyle cocks his head, watching the Japanese delegation. You know, Relay has one of those, too. Uses it for a freak show in the back of his place. Anderson swallows. Oh, I hadn't heard. Sure. It'll fuck anything. You should see it. Truly bizarre. Carlisle laughs low. Look, she's catching attention. I think the Queen's protector is actually smitten. The Samdat Chalprea, staring at the wind-up, wide-eyed like a cow stuck on the side of the... like a cow struck on the side of the head before slaughter. Anderson frowns, shocked despite himself. He wouldn't risk his status. Not for Windup. Who knows? The man doesn't exactly have a clean reputation. Positively debauched from what I've heard. He was better when the old king was alive, kept himself under control. But now? Carlisle trails off. He nods at the Windup Girl. I wouldn't be surprised if the Japanese end up making a gift of goodwill in the near future. No one refuses the Samdat Chalprea. More bribes. Always. But the Samdat Chalprea would be worth it. From everything I've heard, he's taken over most of the palace functions, accumulated a lot of power. And that would give you a lot of insurance when the next coup happens. Carlisle observes. Everyone looks calm, but below the surface things are boiling. Pracha and Akarat can't go on like this. They've been circling each other ever since the December 12th coup. He pauses. With the right pressure, we help decide who comes out on top. Sounds expensive. Not to your people. A bit of gold and jade, some opium. He lowers his voice. Might even be cheap by your standards. Stop selling me. Am I going to meet Akarat or not? Carlisle claps Anderson on the back and laughs. God, I love working with Farang. At least you're direct. Don't worry. It's already arranged. And then he's striding back toward the Japanese delegation and hailing Akarat, and Akarat is looking at Anderson with bright, appraising eyes. Anderson ways a greeting. Akarat, as befit his high rank, favors Anderson with the barest nod of acknowledgement. Outside the gates of the Environment Ministry, as Anderson hails Lao Gu for a ride back to the factory, a pair of ties sweep up on either side. This way, Kun. They take Anderson by the elbows and guide him down the street. For a moment, Anderson thinks he's being grabbed by the white shirts, but then he sees a coal diesel limo. He fights down paranoia as he's guided inside. If they wanted to kill you, they could wait for any number of better times. The door slams closed. Trade Minister Akarat sits across from him. Kun Anderson, Akarat smiles. Thank you for joining me. Anderson scans the vehicle, wondering if he can break out or if the locks are controlled up front. The worst part of any job is the moment of exposure when too many people suddenly know too many things. Finland went that way. Peters and Lee, with nooses around their necks and their feet kicking air as they were raised above the crowds. Kun Richard tells me that you have a proposal, Akarat prompts. Anderson hesitates. I understand we have mutual interests. No, Akarat shakes his head. Your people have tried to destroy mine for the last 500 years. We have nothing in common. Anderson smiles tentatively. Of course. We see some things differently. The car starts to roll. Akarat says, This is not a question of perspective. Ever since your first missionaries landed on our shores, you have always sought to destroy us. During the old expansion, your kind tried to take every part of us, chopping off the arms and legs of our country. It's only through our king's wisdom and leadership that we avoided your worst. And yet, still, you weren't done with us. With the contraction, your worshipped global economy left us starving and over-specialized. He looks pointedly at Anderson. And then your calorie plagues came. You very nearly took rice from us entirely. I didn't know the Minister of Trade was a conspiracy theorist. Which are you? Akarat studies him. Agrogen, Pure Cow, Total Nutrient Holdings. Anderson spreads his hands. I understand that you would like help in arranging a more stable government. I have resources to offer, provided that we can come to an agreement. What is it you want? Anderson looks him in the eye, serious. Access to your seed bank. Akarat jerks back. Impossible. The car turns and begins to accelerate down Thanon Rama the 12th. Bangkok streams by in a blur of images as Akarat's retinue clears the avenue ahead of them. Not to own, Anderson puts out a calming hand. Only to sample from. The seed bank has kept us independent of your kind. When Blisterust and Gene-Hack Weevil swept the globe, it was only the seed bank that allowed us to stave off the worst of the plagues. And even so, our people died in droves. When India and Burma and Vietnam fell to you, we stood strong. And now you come asking for our finest weapon. Akarat laughs. I may want to see General Praja with his hair and eyebrows shaved off, living in a forest monastery, and despised by all. But on this, at least, he and I agree. No Farang should ever touch the heart of us. You may take an arm or a leg from our country, but not the head, and certainly not the heart. We need new genetic material, Anderson says. We've exhausted many of our options, and the plagues keep mutating. We don't have a problem sharing our research results. Profits, even. I'm sure you offer the same to the Finns. Anderson leans forward. Finland was a tragedy, and not just for us. If the world is going to keep eating, we need to stay ahead of Sibisosis and Blisterust and Nippon Gene-Hack Weevil. It's the only way. You are saying that you yoked the world to your patented grains and seeds, happily enslaved us all, and now you finally realize that you are dragging us all to hell. That's what the Grahamites like to say, Anderson shrugs. The reality is that weevils and Blisterust don't wait, and we're the only ones with the scientific resources to hack our way through this mess. We are hoping that somewhere in your seed bank we'll find a key. And if you don't, then it won't really matter who runs the kingdom. We'll all be coughing up blood from the next mutation of Sibisosis. It's impossible. The Environment Ministry controls the seed stock. I was under the impression that we were discussing a change in administration. Akarat frowns. You want samples. This is all. You're offering weapons, equipment, payoffs, and this is all you want? Anderson nods. And one other thing. A man. Gibbons. He watches Akarat for a reaction. Gibbons? Akarat shrugs. I have never heard of him. A Farang. One of ours. We'd like him back. He's been infringing on our intellectual property. And that bothers you a great deal, I'm sure, Akarat laughs. It's very interesting to actually meet one of your kind. Of course, we all talk about the calorie men crouching on Koangrit like demons, or Fi Krasu, plotting to swallow the kingdom. But you, he studies Anderson, I could have you executed by Megadont if I choose, ripped apart and left for kites and crows, and no one would raise a finger. In the past, even if a whisper of a cavalry man amongst us touched the street, it was enough to trigger protests and riots. And yet, here you sit, so confident. Times have changed. Not as much as you suggest. Are you brave or simply foolish? I could ask you the same question, Anderson says. Not many people poke the white shirts in the eye and expect to get away with it. Akarat smiles. If you had come to me last week with your offers of money and equipment, I would have been very grateful. He shrugs. This week, in light of present circumstances and recent successes, I will take your offer under advisement. He taps on the window for the driver to pull over. You're lucky I'm in a good mood. On another day, I would have seen a cavalryman torn into bloody pieces and called it a very good day. He indicates that Anderson should get out. I'll consider your offer. Everybody's meeting everybody. That was chapter 14. Where are we at, by the way?
An hour and a
Hour
half.
and a half.
Only an hour and a half.
Yeah. We got through a few of these chapters pretty quick.
You did.
I would like to go on a 5-minute break.
Sure.
Need
It's
to get a
break
little
time.
munchy.
Alrighty. We're going to take our break now. So Shae's going to restock some water, do some stuff, and we'll be back in 5. Stick
See you
around.
soon.
All right, back a bit sooner than we expected, but
Yep.
that just means more time to read.
I just needed to scarf down some food and get a little more water.
Gotta recharge.
Yeah. Alrighty. Chapter 15. Ah. There is a place for new people. The hope of it runs through Emiko's head every day, every minute, every second. The memory of the guy Jen Anderson and his conviction that the place truly exists. His hands on her in the darkness, eyes solemn as he nodded and confirmed. So now she stares at Raleigh every night, wondering what the man knows and if she dares to ask him about what he has seen in the north, about the route to safety. 3 times she has approached him, and each time her voice has failed her, leaving the question unasked. Each night she returns home, exhausted from the abuse that Kanika meets out, and falls into dreams of a place where new people dwell in safety, without patrons or masters. Emiko remembers Mizumi-sensei and Kaizen Studio, where she taught all the young new people as they knelt in kimono and took their lessons. What are you? New people. What is your honor? It is my honor to serve. Who do you honor? I honor my patron. Mizumi-sensei was swift with the switch, 100 years old and terrifying. An early new person. Her skin was nearly unaged. An early new person, her skin was nearly unaged. Who knew how many young ones she had shepherded through her studio? Mizumi-sensei, always there, always advising, brutal in her anger, and yet fair in her punishments. And always the instruction, the faith that if they served their patron well and they had attained their highest state, Mizumi-sensei introduced them all to Mizuko Jizo Ultivista, who has compassion even for new people, and who would hide them in his sleeves after their deaths and smuggle them out of the hell world of genetically engineered toys and into the true cycle of life. Their duty was to serve. Their honor was to serve, and their reward would come in the next life when they became fully human. Service would yield the greatest rewards. How Emiko had hated Mizumi-sensei when Gendo-sama abandoned her. But now her heart beats again at the thought of a new patron, a wise man, a guide into a different world, one who can provide what Gendo-sama would not. Another who lies to you? Who will betray you? She squashes the thought. It is the other Emiko who thinks this, not her. Not her highest self at all. As if she is nothing but a Cheshire, bent on glutting herself, unconcerned with what her niche may be, overrunning everything. Not a thought appropriate to new people at all. Mizumi-sensei taught that there are 2 parts to a new person's nature. The evil half, ruled by the animal hungers of their genes, by the many splicings and additions that changed them into what they were, and balanced against this, the civilized self, the side that knows the difference between niche and animal urge, that comprehends its place in the hierarchies of their country and people, and appreciates the gift their patrons provide by giving them life. Dark and light, in yo. 2 sides of a coin, 2 sides of the soul. Mizumi-sensei helped them own their souls, prepared them for the honor of service. To be honest, it is only Gendo-sama's poor treatment of her that makes Emiko think so badly of him. He was a weak man. Or perhaps, if she is honest, she was not all she could have been. She did not serve to her utmost. That is the sad truth. A bit of shame that she must accept even as she strives to live without the loving hand of a patron. But perhaps this strange gaijin, perhaps she will not let the cynical animal into her mind tonight. She will let herself dream. Himiko spills out of her tower slum into Bangkok's cooling evening. A carnival feel informs the green-tinged streets. Walks burning their nighttime noodles, offering simple dishes to the farmers of the market before they return into distant fields for the night. Emiko wanders through the night market, one eye out for white shirts, one on dinner. She finds a vendor of grilled squid and takes one dip into chili sauce. And takes one dip into chili sauce. In the candlelight and shadows, she has cover of sorts. Her fascine hides the movement of her legs. It is only her arms she must concern herself with. And if she is slow, careful, and keeps them close to her side, her movements can be mistaken for daintiness. From a woman and her daughter, Emiko buys a folded banana leaf plate, cupping a nest of fried Utex siu. The woman fries the noodles over blue methane, illegal but not impossible to obtain. Emiko sits at a makeshift counter to shovel them in, her mouth burning at the spice. Others look at her strangely, make a few faces of distaste, but they do nothing. Some of them are even familiar with her. The rest have enough troubles without tangling themselves in the business of wind-ups and white shirts. It is a strange advantage, she supposes. The white shirts are so despised that people don't draw their attention unless absolutely necessary. She shovels the noodles into her mouth, and again thinks of the gaijin's words. There is a place for new people. She tries to imagine it. A village full of people with stuttering telltale motions and smooth skin. She craves it. But there is an opposing feeling, also. Not fear. Something she never expected. Revulsion? No, too strong a word. More a shiver of distaste that so many of her kind have shamefully fled their duties, all of them living among one another, and not a single one of them as fine as Gendo-sama. A whole village of new people who have no one to serve. Yumiko shakes her head forcefully. And what has service gotten her? People like Raleigh and Kanaka. And yet a whole tribe of new people huddled in the jungle? What would it be like to hold an 8-foot laborer in her arms? Would that be her lover? Or one of the tentacle monsters of Gendo-sama's factories? 10 arms like a Hindu god, and a drooling mouth that demands nothing but food and a place to put its hands?
Oh my.
Yep, that's apparently a thing.
It is Japan.
Yep. How can such a creature make its way north? Why are they there in the jungle? She forces back her revulsion. It is surely no worse than Kanaka. She has been enslaved to think against new people, even when she herself is one of them. If she thinks logically, she knows that no new person can be any worse than the client last night, who fucked her, then spat on her before he left. Surely, to lie with a smooth-skinned new person could not be worse. But what kind of life could it be in the village, eating cockroaches and ants, and whatever leaves haven't succumbed to ivory beetle? Relay is a survivor, are you? She stirs her noodles with her 4-inch Red Star bamboo chopsticks. What would it be like to serve no one? Would she dare? It makes her dizzy, almost giddy to think of it. What would she do without a patron? Would she then become a farmer? Perhaps grow opium in the hills? Smoke a silver pipe and blacken her teeth as she has heard some of those strange hill tribe ladies do? She laughs to herself. Can she imagine it? Lost in her thoughts, she nearly misses it. Only luck, the chance movement of a man at the table across from her. His startled glance, and then the duck of his head as he buries his attention in his food, saves her. She freezes. The night market has fallen silent. And then, like hungry ghosts, the men in white appear behind her, talking in their quick song to the woman at the walk. The woman bustles to serve, obsequious. Emiko trembles before them, noodles halfway between her mouth and lips, her slender arms suddenly shaking under the strain. She wants to put the chopsticks down, but there is nothing to do. No way to hide herself if she moves. And so she sits frozen, while the men speak behind her, looming over her as they wait. Finally oversteps himself. I heard Biram Bakamdi was screaming up and down the offices, saying he was going to get his head. JD's head on a platter. He's gone too far. He gave 5,000 baht to his men, every one of them, for the raid. A lot of good it does them now that he's been stripped. Still, 5,000. No wonder Biram Bakamdi was spitting blood. It must have seemed like 500,000 that he lost. And JD just charged in like a megadon. The old man probably thought JD was Torapi, the bull, measuring his father's footprint, looking to take him down. Not anymore. Emiko trembles as they jostle her. This is the end. She will drop the chopsticks and they will see the Windup Girl. As they haven't seen her yet, though, they cluster around her. Though they bump against her with a self-confident maleness. Though one white shirt's hand is touching her neck as though accidentally pressed there by the jostle of others. Suddenly, she will no longer be invisible. She will appear before them, fully formed, a new person with nothing but expired papers and import licenses. And then she will be mulched, recycled as quickly as the compost dung and cellulose, thanks to the telltale twitching movements that mark her as clearly as if she were painted in the excreta of glowworms. I never thought I'd see him crab before Akarat, though. That was a bad thing. We all lose face with that. Here's a pause. Then one of them says, Auntie, it looks like your methane is the wrong color. The woman grins uncomfortably. Her daughter's smile mirrors the uncertainty. We made a gift to the ministry last week, she says. The man who has his hand on Emiko's neck speaks, caressing her idly. She tries not to shiver under his touch. Then perhaps we were told wrong. The woman's smile falters. Perhaps my memory is bad. Well, I'm happy to check the state of your accounts. She keeps the smile on her face. No need to trouble yourself. I'll send my daughter now. In the meantime, why not take these 2 fish for yourselves? You don't get paid enough to eat well. She pulls 2 large tilapia from her grill and offers them to the men. That's very kind of you, Auntie. I'm hungry. With the banana leafed claw tucked into their hands, the white shirts turn away and continue their journey through the night market, seemingly unaware of the terror they spread before them. The woman's smile fades as soon as they're gone. She turns to her daughter and pushes Bot into her hands. Go down through the police box. Make sure the Sergeant Sirapun is the one you give the money to. I don't want those 2 coming back. The touch of the white shirt burns in the back of Emiko's neck. Too close. Too close by far. Strange how she sometimes forgets that she is hunted. Sometimes fools herself and thinks she is almost human. Emiko shovels the last of her noodles into her mouth. She cannot delay anymore. She must face Raleigh. Music.
Zippity zip zip.
Better. Butter. I wish to leave this place. Raleigh turns on his bar stool, expression bemused. Oh, shit. What kind of voice did I give Raleigh?
Yes.
Really, Emiko? He smiles. You have a new patron, do you? Around them, the other girls are arriving, chattering and laughing to one another, making wise to the spirit house. A few of them making little offerings in hopes of encouraging a kind customer or a rich patron. Emiko shakes her head. Not a new patron. I wish to go north, to the villages where the new people live. Who told you about that? It exists, yes. From his expression, she knows that it does. Her heart starts to pound. It's not just a rumor. It exists, she says more firmly. He gives her an appraising look. It might. He signals dying. He signals dying. He signals... God, what is this guy's name? He signals Dang, the bartender, for another drink. But I should warn you, it's a hard life out there in the jungle. You eat bugs to survive if your crops fail. Not much to hunt. Not after Blister Rust and Nippon Jinhaku we will kill so much fodder. He shrugs. A few birds. He looks at her again. You should stay closer to the water. You'll overheat out there. Take it from me. It's a damn hard living. You should look for a new patron if you really want to get out of here. The white shirts almost caught me today. I will die here if I stay. I pay them not to catch you. No, I was at a night market. What the hell were you doing at a night market? You want something to eat, you come here. Raleigh scowls. I am so sorry. I must go, Raleigh-san. You have influence. People you can influence to help get travel permits, to allow me to pass the checkpoints. Raleigh's drink arrives. He takes a sip. The old man is like a crow, all death and putrescence, sitting on his bar stool, watching his whores arrive for their night's work. He looks her over with barely masked disgust, as if she is a piece of dog shit stuck to his shoe. He takes another drink. It's a hard road north. Damn expensive. I can earn my passage. Raleigh doesn't respond. The bartender finishes polishing the bar. He and an assistant set out a chest of ice from the luxury manufacturer, Giant Namyan. Cool heart, cool water. Relay holds out his glass, and Diane drops a pair of cubes in with a tinkling report. Out of the insulated chest, they start to melt in the heat. Himiko watches the ice cubes sag into liquid. Dang pours water over the cubes. She's burning up herself. The club's open windows do nothing to catch the breeze, and at this early hour, the swelter inside the building is still overwhelming. None of the yellow card fan men have arrived yet, either. The club radiates heat from walls and floor, encasing them. Relay takes a swallow of his cool water. Himiko watches, burning, wishing she could sweat. Kun Relay, please. So sorry, please. She hesitates. A cold drink. Relay sips his water and watches as more of his girls filter in. Keeping a wind-up is damn expensive. Himiko smiles embarrassment, hoping to assuage him. Finally, Relay makes a face of irritation. Fine. He nods to Dange. A glass of ice water is passed across. Himiko tries not to lunge for it. She holds it to her face and neck, almost gasping with relief. She drinks and presses the glass against herself again, clutching it like a talisman. Thank you. Why should I help you get out of the city? I will die if I stay here. It's not good business. It wasn't good business to hire you. It is definitely not good business to bribe you all the way north. Please, anything. I will pay it. I will do it. You may use me. He laughs. I've got real girls. His smile disappears. The problem, Himiko, is that you've got nothing to give. You drink the money you earn every night. Your bribes cost money. Your ice costs money. If I weren't so nice, I'd just throw you out in the street for the white shirts to mulch. You're not a good business proposition. Please, don't piss me off. Go get ready for work. I want you out of your street clothes when the customers arrive. His words have the finality of true authority. Reflexively, Himiko starts to bow acquiescence to his wishes. She stops short. You are not a dog, she reminds herself. You are not a servant. Service has gotten you abandoned amongst demons in a city of divine beings. If you act like a servant, you will die like a dog. She straightens. So sorry. I must go north, Relay-san. Soon. How much will it cost? I will earn it. You're like a goddamn Cheshire. Relay stands suddenly. You just keep coming back to pick over the dead. Himiko flinches. Even though he is old, Relay is still Gaijin, born and fed before the contraction. He stands tall. She takes another step back, unnerved by the sudden loom. Relay smiles grimly. That's right. Don't forget your place. You'll go north, all right. But you'll do it when I'm good and ready. And not until you've earned every bat for the white shirt bribes. How much? His face reddens. More than you've made till now. She jumps back, but Relay grabs her, yanks her close. His voice is a low, whiskey growl. You were useful to someone once. So I see how I'll wind up. Like you might forget yourself, but let's not fool ourselves. I own you. His bony hand fumbles at her breast, seizes a nipple, and twists. She whimpers in pain and wilts under his hand. His pale blue water eyes watch her like a snake's. I own every part of you, he murmurs. If I want you mulched tomorrow, you're gone. No one will care. People in Japan might value a wind-up here. Found you a wind-up here, you're just trash. He squeezes again. She takes a shuddering breath, trying to keep her feet. He smiles. I own you. Remember that. He releases her abruptly. Imiko stumbles back and catches the bar's edge. Relay returns to his drink. I'll let you know when you've earned enough to go north, he says, but you'll work for it, and work for it good. No more of your picky ways. If a man wants you, you go with him and make him happy. Happy enough that he wants to come back and try the novelty again. I've got plenty of natural girls offering natural sex. If you're going to go north, you better start offering something more. He upends his drink, gulping it, slaps the glass down on the bar for Jang to refill. Now quit sulking and start earning. Just to reinforce how shitty your life has become.
Mm-hmm. Just in case you didn't think it was shitty.
Just in case. Hello? Is that a bot?
Those were bots. They were
Oh.
deleted. Good old spam. And Frosty and a good admin.
Awesome
Or
Frost.
Moderator here. Admin for Discord. Yes, same words, different meanings.
Alright, 16. Oh, excuse me. Hawk Sing scowls at the safe where it squats across from him. It's early morning in the Spring Life office, and he should be busy forging a ledger before Mr. Lake arrives, but the safe is all he can focus on. It mocks him, sitting there, enveloped in the smoke of offerings, which have done nothing to open it. I thought he was told to stop that. Ever since the anchor pad incident, the safe is always locked, and now the Devil Lake is always looking over his shoulder, asking about the state of accounts, always prying and asking. And still the Dung Lord waits. Hoksang has seen him twice more. Each time the man has been patient, and yet Hoksang senses a growing irritation, a willingness perhaps to take matters into his own hands. The window of opportunity is closing. Hoksang scratches numbers into the ledger, reconciling the money he skimmed from the purchase of a temporary spindle. Should he simply rob the safe? Take the risk of suspicion falling on himself? There are industrial supplies in the factory, and that would burn through the iron in mere hours. Is this better than making the Dung Lord wait? Risking that the godfather of all godfathers will do the deed himself? Hoksang ponders his options. All his choices come loaded with risks that make his skin crawl. If the safe is damaged, his face will soon be plastered on lampposts, and it is a very bad time to be an enemy of the foreign devils. With Akarat and Ascendancy, the Farang are also on the rise. Every day brings more news of white shirt humiliation. The Tiger of Bangkok is now a shaven-headed monk, without family or property. What if Mr. Lake were removed entirely? If an anonymous knife in the gut as he walks down the street, perhaps. It would be easy, cheap even. For 15 baht, Laughing Chin would do it willingly, and the foreign devil would trouble Hoksang no more. A knock at the door startles him. Hoksang straightens and shoves the newly forged ledger under the desk. Yes? It's Mai, the skinny girl from the production line, standing at the threshold. Hoksang relaxes slightly as she weighs. Kun, is a difficulty. He uses a cloth to wipe the ink from his hands. Yes, what is it? Her eyes flick around the room. It would be better if you came here yourself. She positively reeks of fear. The hairs on the back of Hawk Sing's neck prickle. She's little more than a child. He has done her decent favors. She has even earned bonuses crawling down in tight passages of the drivetrains, inspecting the links as they brought the factory back into working order. And yet, something in her demeanor reminds him of when the Malays turned on his people. When his workers, always so loyal and appreciative, suddenly could not look him in the eye. If he had been clever, he would have seen the turn of the tide, seen that the days of the Malay and Chinese were numbered, that even a man of his stature, who gave freely to charities, who helped his employees' children as if they were his own, that even his head was slated to be stacked in a gutter. I mean, apparently not.
Apparently not.
They were mad enough to attack his people. Anyway. And now here's Mai, looking shifty. Is this the way they will come for him? Furtive, sending a harmless-looking girl as bait. Is this the end of the yellow cards? Is it the Dung Lord moving against him? Hoxing feigns nonchalance and reclines slightly in his chair even as he watches her. If you have something to say, he murmurs, then say it now. Here. She hesitates. Her fear is obvious. Is the Fereng near? Hoxing glances at the clock on the wall. 6 o'clock. He shouldn't be here for another hour or two. He's seldom early. Please, if you would just come. So this is the way it will be. He nods shortly. Yes, of course. He stands and crosses to her. Such a pretty girl. Of course they would send a pretty one. She looks so harmless. He scratches at his back, lifting the loose hem of his shirt, and slips the knife out. Holds it behind his back as he approaches, waits until the last moment. He grabs her hair and yanks her close, presses the knife against her throat. Who sent you? The Dung Lord? White shirts? Who? She gasps, unable to free herself without cutting her throat. No one! Do you think I am a fool? He presses the knife home, breaking skin. Who is it? No one, I swear. She is shaking with fear, but Hoxing doesn't release her. Is there something you wish to say? Some secret you must keep? Tell it now. She gasps at the pressure of the blade on her neck. No, Kun, I swear. No secret. But... Yes? She sags against him. The white shirts. She whispers. If the white shirts find out, I'm no white shirt. It's Kit. Kit is ill. And Srimuang. Both of them. Please, I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose the job. I don't know what to do. Please don't tell the Fereng. Everyone knows the Fereng might close the factory. Please, my family needs... Please. Please. She's sobbing now, sagging against him, begging him as if he might be her savior, mindless of the knife. Hoxing grimaces and pulls the knife away, suddenly feeling old. This is what it is to live in fear, to suspect 13-year-old girls, to think that daughter mouths intend your death. He feels sick. He can't meet her eyes. You should have said so, he mutters gruffly. Stupid girl. These are not matters to be coy about. He lifts his shirt and slides the knife back into its sheath. Show me your friends. She carefully wipes her tears away. She's not resentful. She's adaptable, as young people often are. With the crisis past, she obediently leads him out of the office. Down on the factory floor, workers are beginning to arrive. The great doors rattle wide, and sun pours into the huge hall. Dung and dust motes swirl in the light. Mai leads him through the fining room, kicking through pale dust residue, and into the cutting rooms. Overhead, the screens of algae fill the room with the sea reek of their drying. She sends him past the cutting presses and ducks under the line on the other On the other side, the algae tanks sit in silent ranks, full of salt and life. More than half of the tanks show signs of reduced production. Algae barely covers their surfaces. Even though the skim should be more than 4 inches thick after a night without harvesting. There, my whispers, pointing. Kit and Srimwang both lie against a wall. The two men look up at Hawksang with dull eyes. Hawksang kneels close but doesn't touch. Have they eaten together? I don't think so. They are not friends. Couldn't it be symbiosis? Lesterust? He shakes his head. I am a stupid old man. It is neither. There's no blood on their lips. Kit moans, tries to sit up. Hawksang flinches away, fighting an urge to wipe his hands on his shirt. The other man, Srimwang, looks even worse. What was this one's responsibility? Mai hesitates. I think he fed the tanks, poured the sacks of fish meal for the algae. Hawksang's skin crawls. 2 bodies lying beside the tanks that Hawksang himself brought back to full production for the benefit of Mr. Anderson rushing to please him. Is it coincidence? He shivers, eyeing the room from a new perspective. Overflow from the vats dampens the floor and pools near the rusting drains. Blooms of algae decorate the damp surface, feeding on leftover nutrients. Vectors everywhere. If there's something wrong with the tanks. Vectors everywhere if there's something wrong with the tanks. Hawksang instinctively starts to wipe his hands, then stops short, skin crawling anew. The gray powders of the fining room cling to his palms, marking where he pushed the curtains aside as he passed through. He's surrounded by potential vectors. Overhead, drying screens hang suspended on their racks, filling the warehouse dimness, bank after bank, smeared with blackened skim. A drop of water falls from a screen, splatters on the floor beside his foot, and with it comes awareness of a new sound. He never heard it when the factory was full of people, but now, in this early morning quiet, it is all around. The gentle patter of rain from the screens above. Hawksang stands abruptly, fighting rising panic. Don't be a fool. You don't know it's the algae. Death comes in many forms. It could be any sort of disease. Kit's breathing is strangely ragged in the stillness. A panting bellows as his chest rises and falls. Do you think it is a pandemic? Mai asks. Hawksang glares at her. Don't say those words. Do you wish to bring demons down on us? White shirts, if news gets out, they'll shut down the factory. We'll be starving like yellow cards. We'll be, yeah. But outside in the main hall, voices echo. It just occurs to me how topical this is. Hush, child. Hawksang motions her to silence, thinking furiously. A white shirt investigation would be disastrous. Just the excuse the foreign devil, Mr. Lake, would need to shut the place down, to fire Hawksang, to send him back to the towers to starve, To die after coming so far, after coming so close. More morning greetings echo from the rest of the factory. A megadont groans. Doors rattle wide. The main flywheels rumble to life as someone runs a line test. What should we do? I asks. Sang glances around at the vats and machinery, the still empty rooms. You're the only one who knows they are sick? My nods. I found it when I came in. You're sure you didn't mention it to anyone else as you came to find me? No one else has been in here. No one was here with you and perhaps thought they would take the day off when they saw these two? Mai shakes her head. No, I came alone. I catch a ride with a farmer near the edge of the city. He brings me in his long tail up the Kongs. I always get here early. Sang looks down at the two sick men, then at the girl. 4 of them in the room. 4. He winces at the thought. Such an unlucky number. 4. Sz. 4. Sz. SZ. 4 Sz. Death. A better number is 3, or 2, or 1. One is the ideal number for a secret. Unconsciously, Sing's hand strays to his knife, considering the girl. Messy, but still less messy than the number 4. The girl's long black hair is tied up in a careful bun at the top of her head to keep it free of running line equipment. Her neck is exposed. Her eyes are trusting. Sing looks away, evaluating the bodies again, calculating against inauspicious numbers. 4, 4, 4. Death. 1 is better. 1 is best. He takes a breath and makes a decision. He reaches for her. Come here. She hesitates. He scowls at her, waves her closer. You want to keep your job, yes? She nods slowly. Then come. These 2 need to go to the hospital, yes? We cannot help them here. And two sick men lying beside Archibas will do none of us any good. If we want to keep on eating, gather them, meet me at the side door, not through the main door. The side one. Go under the line with them, through the service access. The side, do you understand? She nods uncertainly. He claps his hands together, spurring her to action. Quickly, now, quickly. Drag them if you must. He motions to the bodies. People will be arriving. 1 person is already too many to keep a secret. And here we stand. 4. Let's make this a secret of 2 at least. Just better than 4. Death. She takes a frightened breath. Then her eyes narrow with determination. She crouches to wrestle with Kit's body. Sing watches to make sure she is underway, then ducks out. In the main hall, people are still stowing their launches and laughing. No one in a rush. The Thai are lazy. If they were Chinese yellow cards, they would already be working and all would be lost. For once, Sing is glad he works with Thais. He still has a little time. He ducks out the side door. Outside, the alley is empty. High factory walls. Oh, excuse me. There we go. Outside, the alley is empty. High factory walls pin the narrow way. Sing jogs towards Foster Street and its jumble of breakfast stalls, streaming noodles, and ragged children. A cycle rickshaw flashes across the gap. Wait, he calls out. Somlao, wait! But he is too far away. He limps to the intersection, favoring his bad knee. Catches sight of another rickshaw. He flags the driver. The man glances behind to see if he is threatened by competition, then angles towards Hoxing with a lackadaisical pedal, allowing the slight slope of the street to let him coast. "Faster!" Hoxing shouts. "Quieten, you dog fucker!" The man ignores the abuse, lets his cycle coast to a stop. "You caught me, Kun." Hoxing climbs in and waves down the alley. "I have passengers for you, if you hurry up." The man grunts and steers down the narrow way. The cycle chain clicks sedately. Hoxing grits his teeth. "Double pay, quickly, quickly!" He motions the man onward. The man leads on the pedals marginally more aggressively, but still he shambles like a megadon. Ahead, Maya appears for a moment. Hoxing is afraid that she will be stupid and bring out the bodies before the rickshaw arrives. But Kit is nowhere in sight. It is only when the rickshaw comes close that she slips back inside and drags the first incoherent worker into view. The rickshaw man shies at the body, but Hoxing leans over his shoulder and hisses, "Triple pay." He grabs Kit and wrestles him into the rickshaw seat before the man can protest. Mai disappears back inside. The rickshaw man eyes Kit. "What's wrong with him?" "He's drunk," Hoxing says. "He and his friend. If the boss catches them, they're fired." "He doesn't look drunk." "You're mistaken." "No, that one looks like..." Hoxing stares at the man. "The white shirts will cast their net over you as surely as they will me. He is on your seat, in your breathing presence." This rickshaw man's eyes widen. He draws back. Hoxing nods confirmation, holding the man's gaze. "There's no point in making a complaint now. I say they are drunk. Triple pay to you when you return." Mai reappears with the second worker, and Hoxing helps lever him into the seat. He ushers Mai into the rickshaw with the men. "Hospitals," he says, and then he leans close. "But different hospitals, yes?" Mai nods sharply. "Good, clever girl." Hoxing steps back. "Go on then, go, beat it." The rickshaw man sets off, pedaling much faster than before. Hoxing watches them ride away, the heads of 3 passengers and the rickshaw man, rattling and bouncing as the bike's wheels chatter over cobbles. He grimaces. 4 again. A bad number for certain. He pushes paranoia away, wondering if he is even capable of strategizing these days. An old man who jumps at shadows. Would he be better off if Mai and Kit and Srimun were feeding red fin pla in the murky waters of the Chao Freya River? If they were just a collection of anonymous parts bobbing amongst the roiling bodies of hungry carp? Would he not be safer? For Zed? Is it Zed? Death. His skin crawls at the proximity of sickness. He rubs his hands unconsciously against his trousers. He'll have to bathe. Rub down with a chlorine bleach scrub and hope it does the job. The rickshaw man turns out of sight, carrying his diseased cargo. Hoxing heads back inside to the factory floor, where the lines rattle with test runs and voices call out to one another in morning greeting. "Please let it be a coincidence," he prays. "Please don't let it be the line." And that was chapter 16. So, yeah, bad stuff now. Yeah. This guy's so paranoid he'll attack little girls now because he thinks they'll kill him. But at least he didn't kill her. One more sip. That's better. Alright. How long is this chapter? Yeah, I can get through this one. How many nights has he gone without sleep? 1 night? 10 nights? 10,000? Excuse me. JD cannot remember anymore. Moons have passed awake, and suns have passed in dream, and everything is counting. Gosh, I get hiccups too easily. And everything is counting, numbers spinning out in steady accumulation of days and hopes dashed. Propitiations and offerings unanswered. Fortune tellers with their predictions, generals with their assurances. Tomorrow, 3 days for certain. There are indications of a softening, whispers of a woman's whereabouts. Patience. Giant. Cool heart. Nothing. Apologies and humiliations in the newspaper. A personal criticism by his own hand. More false admissions of greed and corruption. 200,000 baht that he cannot repay. Editorials and condemnations in the whisper sheets. Stories spread by his enemies that he spent stolen money on whores, on a private stock of Utex rice against famines, that he squirreled it away for personal benefit. The tiger was nothing more than another corrupt white shirt. Fines are meted out. The last of his property confiscated. The family home burned. A funeral pyre, while his mother-in-law wails and his sons, already stripped of his name, watch somnolent. It has been decided that he will not serve his penance in a nearby monastery. Instead, he will be banished to the forests of the Phra Kritapong, where ivory beetle has turned the land into waste, and where blister rust rewrites waft across the border from Burma, banished to the wastelands to contemplate the Dhamma. His eyebrows are shaved. His head is a simple pate. Pate is a simple pate. Is a simple pate. If he happens to return from his penance alive, he looks forward to a lifetime of guarding yellow cards and their internments down in the south. The lowest work for the lowest white shirt. And yet, still no word of Shae. Is she alive? Is she dead? Was it trade? Was it another? A Zhao poor, incensed at JD's audacity? Was it someone within the Environment Ministry? Biram Bhakti, irritated at JD's disregard for protocol? Was it meant as a kidnapping or murder? Did she die fighting to get free? Is she still in that concrete room of the photograph where somewhere in the city, sweating in an abandoned tower, waiting for him to rescue her? Does her corpse feed the Cheshires in an alley? Does she float in the Shao Freya, food now for the Bodhicarp Rev 2.3 that the ministry has bred with such success? He has nothing but questions. He shouts into the well, but no echo returns. And so now he sits in a barren monk's kuti on the temple grounds of Wat Bawaniwet, waiting to hear whether Phra Kritapong's monastery will actually accept the task of reforming him. He wears the white of a novice, He will not wear orange. Not ever. He is not a monk. He does a special penance. His eyes follow rusty water stains on the wall, the blooms of mold and rot. On one wall, a bow tree is painted, the Buddha sitting beneath it as he seeks enlightenment. Suffering. All is suffering. JD stares at the bow tree, just another relic of history. The ministry has artificially preserved a few, ones that didn't burst into kindling under the internal pressure of the ivory beetles breeding. The beetles burrowed and hatching in the tangled trunks of the bow until they burst forth, flying and spreading to the next victim, and their next, and their next. All is transient. Even bow trees cannot last. JD touches his eyebrows, fingering the pale half-moons above his eyes, where hair once stood. He still hasn't gotten used to his shaven state. Everything changes. He stares up at the bow tree and the Buddha. I was asleep. All along I was asleep and never understood. But now, as he stares at the relic bow tree, something shifts. Nothing lasts forever. A kuti is a cell. The cell is a prison. He sits in a prison while the ones who took Shae live and drink and whore and laugh. Nothing is permanent. This is the central teaching of the Buddha. Not a career, not an institution, not a wife, not a tree. All is change. Change is the only truth. He stretches a hand toward the painting and traces the flaking paint, wondering if the man who painted it used a real living bow tree as a model, if he was lucky enough to live when they lived, or if he modeled it from a photo, copied from a copy. In 1,000 years, will they even know that bow trees existed? Will Nirat and Surat's great-grandchildren know there were other fig trees, also all gone? Will they know that there were many, many trees, and that they were of many types? Not just a Gates teak and a gene-ripped pure cow banana, but many, many others as well. Will they understand that we are not fast enough or smart enough to save them all? That we had to make choices? The Grahamites who preach on the streets of Bangkok all talk of their Holy Bible and its stories of salvation, their stories of Noah Boldhavista, who saved all the animals and trees and flowers on his great bamboo raft, and helped them cross the waters, all the broken pieces of the world piled atop his raft while he hunted for land. But there's no Noah Boldhavista now. There's only Frasub, who feels the pain of loss, but can do so little to stop it, and the little mud Buddhas of the Environment Ministry who hold back rising waters by barest luck. The bow tree blurs. JD's cheeks are wet with tears. Still, he stares up at it, and the Buddha in his pose of meditation. Who would have thought the calorie companies would attack figs? Who would have thought the bow trees would die as well? The Farang have no respect for anything but money. He wipes the water off his face. It's stupid to think that anything lasts forever. Perhaps even Buddhism is transient. He stands and gathers his white novice robes around him. He wies to the flaking paint of the Buddha under his disappeared tree. Outside, the moon shines bright. A few green methane lamps glow, barely lighting the path through re-engineered teak trees to the monastery gates. It is foolish to grasp for things that cannot be regained. All things die. Shae is already lost to him. Such is change. No one guards the gates. It is assumed that he is obedient, that he will scrape and beg for any hope of Shae's return, that he will allow himself to be broken. He's not even sure if anyone cares about his final fate. He has served his purpose, dealt a blow to General Praksha, lost face for the entire Environment Ministry. If he stays or leaves, what of it? He walks out onto the night streets of the city of divine beings and heads south toward the river, toward the grand palace and the glittering lights of the city, down through the streets, half populated, toward the levees that keep the city from drowning under the curse of the Farang. The city pillar shrine rises ahead of him, its roofs gleaming. Buddha images alight with offerings, sweet incense pouring from them. It was here that Rama the 12th declared that the city of Krongthep would not be abandoned, would not fall to the likes of the Farang the way that Ayutthaya fell to the Burmese so many centuries before. Over the chanting of 999 monks dressed in saffron robes, the king declared that the city would be saved, and from that moment he charged the Ministry of the Environment with its defense. Charged them with the building of the great levees and the tide pools that would buffer the city against the wash of monsoon flood and the surge of typhoon waves. Krongthep would stand. JD walks on, listening to the steady chant of monks who pray every minute of the day, summoning the power of the spirit worlds to Bangkok's aid. There were times when he himself knelt on the cool marble of the shrine, prostrate before the city's central pillar, begging for the help of the king and the spirits and whatever life force the city was imbued with as he went forth to do his work. The city pillar was talismanic. It gave him faith. Now he walks past in his white robes and doesn't look twice. All things are transient. He continues through the streets, makes his way into the crowded quarters along the back of the Charing Klong. The waters lap quietly. No one pulls its dark surface this late at night, but ahead one of the screened porches of a candle flickers. He steals closer. Kanya! His old lieutenant turns, surprised. She composes her features, but not before JD has a chance to read her shock at what stands before her, this forgotten man without a hair on his head, without even his eyebrows, grinning madly at her from the foot of her steps. He removes his handle and climbs in, white like a ghost, up the stairs. JD is aware of the appearance he presents. Can't help but enjoy the humor as he opens the screens and slips within. I thought you had already gone to the forest, Kanya says. JD settles beside her, arranging his robes around him. He stares out at the stinking waters of the Klong. A mango tree's branches reflect against the moonlight liquid silver. Against the moonlight liquid silver. It takes a long time to find a monastery willing to soil itself with my sort. Even Fra Kritapong seems to have second thoughts when it comes to enemies of trade. Kanya makes a face. Everyone talks about how they are in ascendancy. Akarat speaks openly of allowing wind-up imports. JD startles. I hadn't heard of such. A new Farang, but... Kanya makes a face. All respect to the queen, but wind-ups do not riot. She forces her thumb into the hard peel of mangosteen. Its purple skin, nearly black in the darkness, peels away. Terapi measuring horribly measuring his father's footprints. JD shrugs. All things change. Kanya grimaces. How can one fight their money? Money is their power. Who remembers their patrons? Who remembers their obligations? When money comes surging in as strong and deep as the ocean against the seawalls. She grimaces. We are not fighting rising waters. We are fighting money. Money is attractive. Kanya makes a bitter face. Not to you. You were a monk even before they sent you to a kuti. Perhaps that is why I make such a poor novice. Shouldn't you be in your kuti now? JD grins. It was cramping my style. Kanya still looks hard at JD. You're not ordaining. I'm a fighter, not a monk, he shrugs. Sitting in a kuti and meditating will do no good. I let myself become confused about that. Losing Shae confused me. She will return, I'm sure of it. JD smiles sadly at his protege, so full of hope and faith. It's surprising that a woman who smiles so little and sees so much melancholy in the world can believe that, in this case, this one exceptional case, that the world will still turn in a positive direction. No, she will not. She will. JD shakes his head. I always thought you were the skeptical one. Kanya's face is anguished. You've done everything to signal capitulation. You have no face left. They must let her go. They will not. I think that she was dead within a day. I only clung to hope because I was mad for her. You don't know she's dead. They could still be holding her. As you pointed out, I have no face left. If this were a lesson, she would have been returned by now. It was a different sort of message than we thought. JD contemplates the still waters of the clone. I need a favor from you. Anything. Loan me a spring gun. Kanya's eyes widen. Kun, don't worry, I'll bring it back. I don't need you to come with me. I just need a good weapon. JD grins. Don't worry, I'll be fine. And there's no reason to destroy 2 careers. You are going after trade. Akarat needs to understand that the tiger still has teeth. You don't even know if it was trade who took her. Who else, really? JD shrugs. I have made many enemies, but in the end, there is really only one. He smiles. There is trade, and there is me. I was foolish to let people convince me otherwise. I'll come with you. No. You will stay here. You will keep an eye on Niwat and Surat. That is all I ask of you, Lieutenant. Please, don't do this. I'll beg Praksha. I will go to... JD cuts her off before she speaks of ugliness. There was a time when he would have let her lose face before him, would have allowed her apologies to spill forth like a waterfall during the monsoon. But not anymore. I do not wish for anything else, he says. I am content. I will go to trade, and I will make them pay. All of this is karma. I was not meant to keep Shae forever, or she to keep me. But I think there are still things we can do if we hold tight to our Dhamma. We all have our duties, Kanya, to our patrons, to our men. He shrugs. I've had many different lives. I was a boy, a Muay Thai champion, and a father, and a white shirt. He glances down at the folds of his novice's clothes. A monk, even. He grins. Don't worry about me. I'll have a few more stages yet to traverse before I give up this life and go to meet Shae. He lets his voice harden. I still have unfinished business, and I won't stop until it's done. Kanya watches him, eyes anguished. You can't go alone? No. I will take some chai. Some chai.
Is that the end?
Not of this chapter.
No.
So basically, he was left in a temple to meditate for 3 days, and then looked at the Buddha and was like, everything changes, everything is transient. And so he, instead of, continue to break under the pressure of waiting for his wife to be returned to him, he went full Buddha, and he went full monk, and was like, I've lost everything. I give up everything. So now I've got things to do.
It's time to kill.
Basically. Trade, the ministry that functions with impunity, that scoffs at him so easily, that steals his wife, who leaves a hole in him, the size of a durian. Shae. JD studies the building. In the face of all those blazing lights, he feels like a savage in the wilderness, like a hill tribe spirit doctor staring at the advance of a Megadon army. For a moment, his sense of mission falters. I should see the boys, he tells himself. I could go home. And yet here he is in the darkness, watching the lights of the Ministry of Trade, where they burn their coal allocation as though the contraction never happened. As though there are no seawalls needed to keep back the ocean. Somewhere in there, a man squats and plans. The man who watched him at the anchor pads so long ago, who spat betel and sauntered away as JD were nothing more than a cockroach to be crushed, who sat beside Akarat and observed silently as JD was thrown down. That man will lead to Shae's resting place. That man is the key. Somewhere in those glowing windows, JD ducks back into the darkness. Somewhere in those glowing windows, JD ducks back into the darkness. He and Somchai wear dark street clothes, stripped of all identifiers. The better to blend with the night. Somchai is a fast one of the best, dangerous close in, and quiet. He knows his way around a lock, and, like JD, he is motivated. Somchai's face is serious as he studies the building, almost as serious as Kanya. When JD considers it, the demeanor seems to creep up on all of them. Eventually. Seems to come with the work. JD wonders if the Thai ever really smiled, as he has heard in legends. Every time he hears his boys laugh, it is as if some beautiful orchid has blossomed in the forest. They sell themselves cheaply, Somchai murmurs. JD nods shortly. I remember when trade was just a bit portfolio under the agriculture, and now look at it. You're showing your age. Trade was always a big ministry. No, just a tiny department. A joke. JD waves at the new complex with its high-tech convection vents, with its awnings and porticos. It's a new world once again. As if to taunt him, a pair of Cheshires jump up on the balustrade to preen and wash. They molt in and out of view, careless of discovery. JD pulls out his spring gun and takes aim. That's what trade has given us. Cheshires should be on their badge. Please don't. He looks at Somchai. It carries no karmic cost. They have no soul. They bleed like any other animal. You could say the same of ivory beetles. Shae ducks his head, but doesn't say anything more. JD scowls and puts his spring gun back into its holster. It would be a waste of ammunition anyway. There are always more. I used to be on the poison details for Cheshires, Shae says finally. Now it's you who shows your age. Shae shrugs. I had a family then. I didn't know. Symbiosis 118 AA. It was quick. I remember. My father died with that one as well. The bad iteration. Shae nods. I miss them. I hope they reincarnated well. I miss them. I hope they reincarnated well. I'm sure they did. He shrugs. One can hope. I became a monk for them. Ordained for a full year. I prayed. Did many offerings. He says again. One can hope. The Cheshires yowl again as Shae washes. I've killed thousands of them. Thousands. I've killed 6 men in my life and never regretted any of them, but I've killed thousands of Cheshires and have never felt at ease. He pauses and scratches behind his ear at a bloom of arrested fog-on fringe. I sometimes wonder if my family's symbiosis was karmic retribution for all those Cheshires. It couldn't be. They're not natural. Shae shrugs. They breed, they eat, they live, they breathe. He smiles slightly. If you pet them, they will purr. JD makes a face of disgust. It's true, I've touched them. They are real, as much as you or I. They're just empty vessels. No soul fills them. Shae shrugs. Maybe even the worst monstrosities of the Japanese live in some way. I worry that Nui and Chart and Mali and Prim have all been reborn in wind-up bodies. Not all of us are good enough to become contraction fee. Maybe some of us become wind-ups in Japanese factories working. You know? We're so few in comparison to the past. Where did all the souls go? Maybe to the Japanese. Maybe into wind-ups. JD masks his uneasiness at the direction of Shae's words. It's impossible. Shae shrugs. Still, I could not bear to hunt a Cheshire again. Then let's hunt men. Across the street, a door is opening and a ministry worker steps outside. JD is already crossing the street, sprinting to catch the man. Their target strides to a rack of bicycles and bends down to unlock a wheel. JD's club slides free. The man looks up and gasps, and then JD is on top of him, baton swinging. The man has time to raise an arm. JD swats it aside, and then he is inside the man's reach and clubs him across the head. Shae catches up. You're fast for an old man. JD smiles. Take his feet. They lug the body back across the street, slipping into the puddled blackness between methane lamps. JD goes through his pockets. Keys jingle. He grins and raises them to show the prize. He ties the man quickly, blindfolds and gags him. A Cheshire drifts close, watching. A molting of calico and shadow and stone. Will the Cheshires eat him? Shae wonders. If you cared, you would have let me kill them. Shae ponders this, but doesn't say anything. JD finishes binding the man. Come on. They jog back across the street, slip to the door. The key enters easily, and they are inside. In the glare of electricity, JD stifles the urge to locate light switches and plunge the ministry into darkness. Stupid to have people working so late, burning all this carbon. Somchai shrugs. Our man may be here in the building even now. Not if he's lucky. But JD has the same thought. He wonders if he will be able to restrain himself if he catches Shae's killer. Wonders why he should. They slip through more lighted halls. A few more people still present, but no one gives them a second glance as they stride by. Both of them walk with authority, have the air of men others must defer to. Both of them walk. Whoops. JD acknowledges others with a quick inclination of his head as he walks past. Eventually, he finds the records offices he requires. Somchai and JD pause in front of glass doors. JD hefts his baton. Glass, Somchai notes. You want to try? Somchai examines the lock, pulls out a set of tools, sets to work probing the aperture, massaging its tumblers. JD stands beside him, waiting impatiently. The corridor blazes with light. Somchai fiddles with the locks. Never mind. JD hefts his baton. Move aside. The shattering is quick. The sound echoes and fades. They wait for footsteps, but there are none. They both slip inside and proceed to rifle through the cabinets. Eventually, JD finds the personnel files, and then there's a long period of examining 4 photographs, of setting aside ones that seem familiar, sifting, sorting. He knew me, JD mutters. He looked right at me. Everyone knows you, Somchai observes. You are famous. JD grimaces. You think he was at the anchor pads to collect something, or just there for the inspections themselves? Or perhaps they wanted whatever was in Carlisle's holds, or some other dirigible that aborted arrival and dropped in an occupied Lana instead. There are 1,000 possibilities, no? Here, JD points. This is the one. You're sure? His face was narrower, I thought. I'm sure of it. Somchai frowns as he scans the file over JD's shoulder. A low-level man. Not important at all. No one with influence. JD shakes his head. No, he has power. I saw the way he looked at me. He was at the ceremony when I was demoted. He frowns. There is no address information from him. Just Chrome Thep. The sound of scuffling comes from outside. A pair of men stand in the broken doorway with their spring guns drawn. Hold! JD grimaces, clasps the file behind his back. Yes, there is a difficulty. The guards step through the door, survey the office. Who are you? JD looks at Somchai. I thought you said I was famous. Somchai shrugs. Not everyone loves Muay Thai. But still, everyone gambles. They should have at least placed bets on my fights. The guards come closer. They order JD and Somchai onto their knees as the guards come around and secure them. JD lashes out with an elbow, catches one guard in the gut, whirls with a knee and slams the man in the head. The other guard fires a stream of blades before Somchai hits him in the throat. The man falls, dropping his pistol, gurgling through a broken windpipe. JD grabs the surviving guard, drags him close. Do you know this man? He holds up the picture of his target. The guard's eyes widen, and he shakes his head. Tries to crawl away towards his pistol. JD kicks it out of reach, and then kicks the man in the ribs. Tell me everything about him. He's got yours. Baccarat's. The guard shakes his head. No. JD kicks him in the face, drawing blood. Gets down beside the mewling man. Tell me, or you'll follow your friend. Both their eyes travel to the gurgling man, strangling on his own crushed airway. Tell me, JD says. No need for that. At the door, the object of JD's hunger stands. Men pour in through the door ahead of him. JD draws his pistol, but they fire and blades slash into his gun arm. He drops the pistol. Blood pours. He turns to run for the office's windows, but men tackle him, skidding on the wet marble. Everyone goes down in a tangle of limbs. Somewhere far away, JD hears some Shae bellowing. His arms are yanked behind him. Zip straps bind his wrists in rattan bonds. Tourniquet that, the man orders. I don't want him bleeding to death. JD looks down. Blood is welling out of his arm. His captors staunch the flow. He's not sure if he's lightheaded from blood loss or the sudden lust he has for his enemy's death. They yank him upright. Some Shae joins him, his nose pouring blood, his eye closed, teeth red. Behind him, on the floor, 2 men lie still. The man studies the 2 of them. JD returns the gaze, refusing to look away. Captain JD, you're supposed to have entered monkhood. JD tries to shrug. My cootie didn't have enough light. I thought I'd do my penance here instead. The man smiles slightly. We can arrange that. He nods to his men. Take them upstairs. The men yank him and some Shae out of the room, drag them down the corridor. They reach an elevator, a real electric elevator, with dials that glow and designs of ramekin on the walls. Each button a small demon's mouth, and busty women playing Saul, Doing, and Jakai around the edges. The door is closed. What is your name? JD asks the man. The man shrugs. It's not important. You're Akarat's creature. The man doesn't answer. The door is open. They come out onto the roof, 15 stories into the air. The men shove him and some Shae toward the lip of the building. Go on, says the man. You wait up here, over by the edge, where we can see you. They point their spring guns and order him forward until he and some Shae stand at the lip, looking down on the faint glows of methane lamps. JD studies the plunge. So this is what it is to face death. He stares down into the depths, the street far below, the air waiting for him. What did you do to Shae? He calls back to the man. The man smiles. Is that why you are here? Because we didn't return her to you soon enough? JD feels a thrill of hope. Could he have been wrong? You can do that. You can do what you want to me, but let her go. The man seems to falter. Is it guilt that makes him hesitate? JD cannot tell. He's too far away. Is Shae dead then, for certain? Just let her go. Do what you want with me. The man doesn't say anything. JD wonders if there is anything he should have done differently. It was brash of him to come here, but she was lost already, and the man has made no promises, no taunts to suggest she is alive. Was he foolish? Is she alive or not? He asks. The man smiles slightly. I suppose it hurts not to know. Let her go. It wasn't personal, JD. If there had been another way. The man shrugs. She is dead. JD is sure of it. All part of some plan. He shouldn't have let Pracha convince him otherwise. He should have attacked immediately with the full power of his men, taught trade a lesson in retribution. He turns to Som Shae. I'm sorry I got you. I'm sorry about this. Somchai shrugs. You were always a tiger. It's in your nature. I knew that when I came with you. Still, Somchai, if we die here. Somchai smiles. Then you will come back as a Cheshire. JD can't help but bark a surprised laughter. It feels good, this bubbling noise. He finds he can't stop. The laughter fills him, lifting him. Even the guards snicker. JD catches another glimpse of Somchai's widening smile, and his mirth redoubles. Behind them, footsteps. A voice. Such a humorous party. So much laughter for a pair of thieves. JD can barely master himself. He gasps for breath. There must be a mistake. We just work here. I think not. Turn around. JD turns. The trade minister stands before him, Akarat in the flesh, and beside him, JD's hilarity leaves him like hydrogen gusting from a dirigible. Akarat is flanked by bodyguards, Black Panthers, royal elites, a sign of the palace's esteem to have them on his leash. JD's heart goes cold. No one in the Environment Ministry is so protected, not even Pracha himself. Akarat smiles slightly at JD's shock. He surveys JD and Somchai as though examining tilapia in the market, but JD does not care. His eyes are on the nameless man behind him, the unassuming one, the one puzzle pieces click into place. You are not trade at all, he murmurs. You're with the palace. The man shrugs. Akarat speaks. You're not so bold now, are you, Captain JD? There. I told you we were famous, Somchai murmurs. JD almost laughs again, though the implications of this new understanding are deeply troubling. You truly have the palace's backing. Akarat shrugs. Trade is in ascendancy. The Somdat Shalpreya favors an open policy. JD measures the distance between them. Too far. I'm surprised a Hia like you would dare come so close to your dirty work. Akarat smiles. I wouldn't miss this. You've been an expensive thorn. Do you intend to push us yourself then? JD taunts. Will you stain your own Kama with my death, Hia? He nods at the men around them. Or will you try to put the stain on your men? See them come back as cockroaches in their next life, to be squashed 10,000 times before a decent rebirth? Blood on their hands for killing in cold blood? For the sake of profit? The men shift nervously and glance at one another. Akarat scowls. You're the one who will come back as a cockroach. JD grins. Come then, prove your manhood. Push the defenseless man to his death. Akarat hesitates. Are you a paper tiger? JD goads. Come on then, hurry up. I'm getting dizzy waiting so close to the edge. Akarat studies him. You've gone too far, White Shirt. This time, you've gone too far. He strides forward. JD whirls. His knee rises, slams into the trade minister's ribs. The men are all shouting. JD leaps again, moving as smoothly as he ever did in the stadiums. It's almost as though he never left Lumfini. Never left the crowds and the roar of gamblers. His knee crushes the trade minister's leg. Fire crackles in JD's joints, unused to these contortions. But even with his hands tied behind his back, his knees still fly with the efficiency of a champion's. He kicks again. The trade minister grunts and stumbles to the building's edge. JD raises his foot to drive Akarat over the precipice, but pain blossoms in his back. He stumbles. Blood mists into the air. Spring gun discs rip through him. JD loses his rhythm. The building's edge surges towards him. He glimpses Black Panthers grabbing their patron, yanking him away. JD kicks again, trying for a lucky strike, but he hears the whine of more blades in the air, the whir of pistol springs unwinding as they spit discs into his flesh. The blooms of pain are hot and deep. He slams against the edge of the building, falls to his knees. He tries to rise again, but now the spring gun whine is steady. Many men are firing. The high-pitched squeal of releasing energy fills his ears. He can't get his knees under him. Akarat is wiping blood off his face. Somchai is struggling with another pair of panthers. JD doesn't even feel the shove that sends him over the edge. The fall is shorter than expected. That was 18.
All right. Only 10 minutes over, so not bad. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. This has been Shae's Story Show, and we were reading Windup Girl. If you guys liked it, be sure to give us a follow. Like it in YouTube when you see it get uploaded. And be sure to check out Shae's own art stream on twitch.tv, Shaegem. Her Patreon and her art station are all listed as well. Guys, check her out. Give her some love. Commissions are open. We'll see you guys tomorrow for Session 0 of Dragon Heist.
Yeah.